Y'all hit that like button when you come in. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'll start shortly. Okay. I gotta have my music to get me in the mood a little bit. How's everybody doing? Thank you for coming once again. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Sometimes I just like listening to instrumentals, y'all. So you have to excuse me. So that's on the I have a playlist called Cameron on my channel, and I just like listening to some of the instrumentals from time to time. What's going on, AB? What's going on, Malika, Mabane? Who else we got here? Miss G, Gold Professor, Double C. How y'all doing? A Life of King Wage. Hey, hopefully y'all can hear me all right. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me okay. But yeah, I'm always taking notes and stuff. So I was taking notes about different topics. And one topic was, the childless or child-free women. And it really wasn't even that particular topic, but West Coast African kind of made it that topic in a way, because he emailed me. Oh, thank you. He emailed me today. And the topic was on women who choose to be childless, child-free. And that phrase, that word child-free, it reminded me, I don't know why, but it reminded me of that DARE slogan, drug-free is the way to be. That mess, it didn't work on a lot of people, but that's what it reminded me of. That was the message I got from some of the videos I've been watching, and they really didn't define, what child-free and happy really was. I could look in the women's eyes and tell, you ain't happy. Come on, woman. Really? And they were saying things like they're their career, and I have so much more time. I have so much time to do other things, and I can travel, and I can just be me for real. And okay, that's cool. But there was one man in a few of one from the video that West Coast sent me. There was another video. You know how that goes in YouTube world. You watch one video, you see another one recommended, you watch that one, and it just keeps going on and on. So I watched another video from Sky News, and there was a guy in there. He said, are we choosing not to continue our civilization? Are we choosing not to stop our civilization and not to reproduce any more children? Is that what we're choosing to do? If that's the case, this is a catastrophe. But yeah, I have my notes. I added a few more notes to it, and I wanted to go through those with you all. Hold on, let me read what AB said. He said, what do you think about this new moth test they have for COVID-19? New moth test? Oh, you mean mouth test? Like the oral swab? You have to send me a link for that. I don't know about a new mouth test. I have to check that out, because there's several tests that they have. I know Russia has one that they put out before it had like true regulations and stuff done, true testing done on it. So I don't know. I'm trying to see what's going to happen with that, because it is Russia. So you never really know. But anyway, back to the topic. I really wanted to talk about this because it relates to a lot of things. What's going on? The Crimson Cure? Oh my gosh, you came to my live. Hey Kizzy, how you doing? I thank you for the tip earlier for the Gmail. I checked it out, and yes, it does work with the chat feature. I never noticed that. It just must have been recent. But thank you for coming. Oh, I just feel so tingly inside. I really appreciate when y'all come. Especially the people that have content, Malika, people who have the content and everything. It really means a lot. I feel humbled when y'all come. But this topic, relates to the Mouse Utopia experiment that I had videos on now, 3 videos on, discussing basically the breakdown of civilization and giving you clues of what not to do. Oh, they just started today? Okay. Because I was like, they making changes? I didn't even know. Okay, I thought I was just late. But yeah, that's a good feature to have on there. So it was basically showing the breakdown of civilization and telling you what not to do. And so my notes that I was writing, the title of the notes I was writing is Women Who Are Child-Free and Happy, the First Death. So if you watch my previous video about the Mouse Utopia, they talked about the first death. The first death is psychological, and the second death is physical. So they use references in the study done by Dr. Calhoun and his cohorts and collaborators. They did this study and they said spiritual because they used a lot of references from revelations in the Bible. And you have to remember the time that they did the study and what other literature was out at that time. Then I want to shout out again to West Coast African for the link to the video from The Guardian. I put a link to it in the description box. It should be there for you all. The title of that video was Being Child-Free by Choice, 5 women on why they decided not to have kids. 5 different women, different ages, different ethnicities, and they give their reasons for why they made that decision and the responses from their families and friends. So this is kind of impromptu in a way, having this stream, but I've been writing notes about this for a good while, not just for you all here, but just for myself, because I have a project I'm working on that pertains to understanding these concepts. What's going on, Valeri? So what I've written, I'll try to just go through it quickly. So I found this video and other videos like it to be very interesting. I've posted them in the description box. They relate to the response that women have about their reproduction and lives in a changing environment. So when I talked about earlier, just a few minutes ago, about how the study of the mass utopia related to the spiritual or psychological death, well, how does that come about? It comes about because your environment changes. More importantly, your environment changes too quickly, and the culture and society, the people in that society, they can't catch up to the changes in the environment. And that's what happened with the mass utopia. They could not biologically keep up. There were no changes in technology, but their environment was made very easy for them to live in, and it was up to them to make the best of it. They failed. I find their commentaries interesting, but also found them very disturbing because the women in these videos that I'm talking about from The Guardian, they either don't realize or refuse to acknowledge that their environment was the reason for the decision they've made. They tended to say things that made me think that they're making these decisions because they want to remain independent from big bad daddy patriarchy or society. And it seemed to me like they were saying, oh, well, society just isn't working out for me in terms of having kids. I'm just going to stick to my career, stick to what I know, and that's good enough. They talked about their careers and holding on to that as strong women. You know, that whole idea of being a strong woman. That's what I heard without them saying strong. Thank you, Tampa Supreme. How you doing, Salchi? AM1, what's going on? That's what I heard. I heard strong without them saying the word strong. And y'all already know what that strong, independent woman, that rugged individualism mantra was very clear and unavoidable while these women were describing not only what made them come to the decisions to not have children, but also the responses that their families gave when the decisions were made known to their families. A major consideration that many Black women make is, and I'm talking about Black women now, because in the video from The Guardian and the other video from Sky News and one from Independent Lens, PBS, there were different ethnicities of women. But specifically talking about Black women, a lot of Black women don't want to be mothers because they don't want to necessarily fall victim to a classification as a single Black mother. And that's understandable. However, in this particular video that they were given, there was a lack of discussion about male representation in their life. I did not see that. If you saw that, then, or if you go watch the video and you saw that, then, you know, I definitely will apologize because I missed that. But I'm gonna stop right there with my notes that I wrote. And I'm gonna look at the chat, because I'm interested to see what you all have to say. Let's AB. Yeah, AB says strong woman. Thank you again, Tampa. And let's see, Micah the comedian. Yeah, exactly. That's what I see. It's not only Tampa. It's not only what's going on, Tone. It's not only a lack of accountability. It's just I don't. It's like they don't see the value. So I mean, they don't see the value in producing life outside of themselves. That would be with the man. And I guarantee you, because I wrote a little side note to myself in the margin of my paper, and I was like, I guarantee you in about 10 years, or some of them maybe 5 years, they gonna be at the sperm bank. Like, you know what? I changed my mind. They're gonna be like Keisha Cole. I changed my mind. Yeah, you changed your mind all of a sudden. Now you realize, oh, I don't know if I can do this on my own, and our people's comments in the comment section of the videos were, some were harsh, some were very mean, some were congratulating them for not wanting to have children. Some were like, okay, yeah, you're like 22, you're going to change your mind. You don't even know what you really want. Oh, thank you, Go Professor. No, I don't think they were married, Miss G. I think that's another thing in the video. That's a good question, because they did, like I said a few minutes ago, they did not even mention the men in their life. I was like, what if these women grow up in a vacuum? Like they grew up in a petri dish or something? Because I take that back. One woman actually mentioned her dad, that something about, I think her dad was Puerto Rican, her mom was Black, something like that. But that was only to display or to discuss the fact that she did not want to raise a Black child in this environment. How are you going to bring up that your father is Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatever her father ethnicity was, and that your mom's Black or something, and then to say, well, I don't want to bring up a child like in this environment that's Black or whatnot. What? Yeah. I'm gonna read what Crimson Cure said. She said, I may do an accompanying video to this. There's persistent unhappiness to not birthing children. Yes. I had to kill that desire that could not be satisfied due to being unable to birth any. Yeah. Wow. And that's the question. What does it mean to be happy? I'm gonna get you in a minute, West Coast. Give me 1 minute. What does it mean to be happy? What is the definition of being happy? And the thing is, when you talk about my career and my truth and all this other stuff, that's not like, there's a difference between like happiness and contentment. Like being content, you're comfortable in that space. Happy, content, you can get out of yourself. You can get that from, I can get that from walking through the park, looking at the trees and the birds. Like, I'm content. This is cool, whatever. At peace with yourself. But happiness, for me, that's coming from something you've produced, and you've built up. You've helped to grow this child up. You've held this child. This child has literally fed off of your breast. You have raised this child. That should be happiness. Biologically, that is, yes, it's hard work, but your role, did you forget your role as a woman? Thank you, Micah. I really appreciate that. AM1 said, this sounds like multiple layers of effery stemming from social conditioning and engineering. Well, yeah. If you're talking about the way the ladies are talking about this, yeah, I can see what you mean by that. Welcome, West Coast African. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Miss Nicole. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for sending me that email. That was great.
Of course, I I found it almost pressing just because when I saw it and I just observed what some of the ladies were saying, I was just like, man, I gotta hand this to Nicole. I gotta get some commentary. I gotta get a woman's perspective on this, because it was so much to unpack in what they were explaining as far as their point of view.
Yeah.
And like for me, what one of the biggest takeaways that I got from it was the socialization piece. Like it really, what I observed were the women were really taking on this like masculine mindset in regards to how they viewed children and even how they viewed companionship. Um, like a lot of them, there was a segment where they brought up their dating life, right?
Mhm.
Um, and one of the ladies spoke about, like, I was on Tinder, I was on one of those dating sites, and it's like it's almost like a turn off if a man says that, you know, he wants children, as far as
Right.
like having a family, you know, because for them, um like they want to, they still want the companionship, but they don't want the family. And so there's sort of this cognitive dissonance where they still want that expectation of being with a man and basically playing out this role of family without like one of the critical pieces, which is having children, like, which is primarily the purpose of family. And so there is a lot of like, at least from what I observed, just a lot of conflict in regards to expectation, social role, and then what their current training was. And so I found it fascinating how they resolved, you know, these inconsistencies, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm. It was inconsistent. That's what it was. It was not balanced. But I understand that they have a marketing technique, and they also have a timing. So they want to keep things brief and to the point. I understand that. But my thing was, it was not very balanced because, like I said, they did not show or have the women talk about, because that's a negative uh, example what that woman gave with the Tinder.
mhm,
Positive example, or an example from before these women made the decision to do what they decided to do, to not have children, a relationship with their father, or Miss G was asking, are any of these women married? You know, probably ex-husband. You know, what did he think? What did your ex-boyfriends think? What any man that want to have children with you or wanted to have children, period. Maybe not with you, because you might be, that girl. That's just the jump off. But maybe he expressed to you, yeah, I want children. Maybe that's why you're not with him. Those types of things they didn't go into. And it was like they expected us to just assume that they had good relationships with men, or
mhm,
it seemed like it's a very gynosyncratic to me and feminist talking points that they were just like just spewing out the whole time. I mean, even uh in the study, Dr. Bryant, the studies that Dr. Bryant, Shalandra Bryant from University of Georgia, the studies that she has done have shown that there is a disconnect, not just with between black men and black women, because I'm talking about us, but within the within black women, as well. So there's an issue there with women, and she has mentioned that it is due to changes in the job market, where you get as a woman preferential treatment
mhm,
that you're acting like it's not there, and these women, that was not mentioned either. The economy was not mentioned. They talking about Tinder. I'm like, really? We got all these other fish to fry, and you want to talk as a white woman? You
mhm.
got fish to fry, and you talk about Tinder.
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean,
no successful dates she had off Tinder either. What's going on, BGS? How are you doing?
hmm. And I think that was the biggest. That was one piece that, you know, as far as just noting is, although they're not, they're implicitly acknowledging it, but they're responding to their environment and they're responding based off of their socialization. I think there was one or two women who mentioned like them having relationships with men, and it became a point of, like, not even a point of contention. There was a discussion that was had in regards to um children, but this was after they had dated, and it ended up resolving to the guy basically accepting, like, hey, this is your point of view, and, you know, I guess we can try to make it work, but I guess didn't end up working out in the long run. So there were women, I think, that were in relationships, but the thing is, up front, the discussion wasn't had as far as, you know, whether or not you want to have a family or you want to have children. There was just this, from the guy's perspective, there was this built-in assumption, like, okay, if we're going down this route, this is what it is. But when the topic came up and there was resistance, then it was just like, you know, you have that awkward moment with your partner, like, oh, well, I guess we can see where it goes, but from there, it just didn't pan out, which, you know, there's so many external forces at play in regards to the thought process that they had. And I'm just like, man, it's, it's almost fascinating because it's not just one particular type of woman. You got different ethnicities. You have age ranges. Like the youngest was 22, right? And then the oldest was like 40, and all of them having their, like, whatever station that they're at in life, having their viewpoint and reinforcing, you know, the whys of
Yeah.
why they, you know, like, well, I don't want to have children because, you know, I've been around children, and, you know, at first it seems cool, but there was a girl who shared her experience of like being in childcare, and it's like at first it's cool, but then you realize like, whoa, I have to be with this be with this child like 24/7. You know,
Yeah.
if this was my own child, and that basically turned them off from that idea, which, again, you know, they alluded to, and like you said, they didn't really explicitly go into the details of their personal life, but it sounded like they were more of the, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, rugged individualism as far as their mindset and what their ultimate goal was throughout each of the age ranges from youngest to oldest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was that was interesting because I mean they chose these women for a reason, and you can, if you break them apart individually, you can see and put them chronologically in order from youngest to oldest. You can see that they have similar patterns based on their generations because they're from I think they're from only two generations. The women that they or maybe three from the women that they showed.
mhm,
Um, and then break it down by generation, then by race, then by location where they live. And I mean, use all kinds of ways you can break this down because they're from different socioeconomic backgrounds as well. But from what I can tell, because if you notice, it's the things they don't say in those types of clips that really give you an idea of who you're talking to.
mhm,
Um, because while they were speaking, they were showing different things in their homes.
mhm.
The white woman was outside of the, excuse me, palm colored woman. Shout out to Torian.
The pink people.
Outside a house
Mhm,
with, and they when they showed her, they made sure that you saw she's at a house, and inside the house she has a dog, a black dog, and she's
mhm,
talking and everything. They didn't really show too much of what was going on in her place. The other women, they were showing like they're in a flat, in a apartment, and they were showing things on their wall. The woman who I just looked at it, and she is Dominican and Cuban, or excuse me, Dominican and Puerto Rican. And so she had words like empowering and you are so extra, like as decoration on her wall,
mhm,
you know. And one of the ladies had pictures of her when she was much younger. And she talked about in middle school when her friends mentioned to her, I'm not going to have kids. And she said, I didn't realize that was an option. Oh, I don't want kids either. How do you know that when you in like seventh grade? Girl, kick rocks. You don't even know what's going on with your own body, like much less knowing that you don't want to have children. And I want to mention something that AM1 was saying in the chat. Um, from what I can tell in this video, and this is not one video, this is like I have five actually on my list of what I was watching. Because, like I said earlier, when you watch one, you're going to start watching others that are similar.
mhm,
Background, these women are not poor, which reinforces their decision. Well, I'm not poor and I'm not doing bad because I don't have kids. That was kind of the other attitude I got from it too. Well, I don't have kids, and look at all the stuff I have. This is great. I can do what I want. Another one from what was that? Sky News in UK.
Hmm.
And so everyone has the nice British accent. They're talking like this. They're so proper. They're so proper. West Coast, it's just great. This is
Hmm.
beautiful. And they're just loving not having kids, and they're talking like that. I'm like, y'all ain't shit. Y'all like you still, and I look at the women and there's a like for me to rate these women 5 6s, a couple threes maybe, in the group, in the bunch, that they weren't showing a lot. So that was also marketing to me, because they were showing the women that are attractive without children, and the woman who was doing the reporting I think has a child, and then she's less attractive. I saw
Mm.
that too. Y'all
Yeah.
ain't slick.
Framing it. So it's like, oh,
And
okay.
framing it. Yeah, big time. And showing them having, house parties and drinking and just having a good time. And it's almost like I think it was, what was Edward Bernays with the cigarettes, um,
Hmm.
and the women, you know, smoking makes you so free and lovely, and men want to be around you. That type of thing. That's what it felt to me.
Yeah, that suggestive imagery, or that suggestive, like lifestyle, like,
Mhm.
if you do this, then this is what comes with it. Which, that goes back to the socialization and what they were trained in. It's like, it started off as, well, you can wait until you get married, until you have kids and stuff like that. And this is just the evolution. At least from what I'm seeing, this is the evolution of it, because not one woman didn't say that they didn't want a man. They just said that they didn't want kids. So
Yeah.
they're still desiring marriage, without certain components. So it's like, you going in the Subway, or you going into one of your eateries like Chipotle. It's like, yeah, I still want the burrito, but I just want it without the rice and the add a little extra vegetables, and
Right.
keep this. And it doesn't work like that. At least when it comes to societies and mates and relationships.
Yeah, because
um
you're still going to pay the same price, basically, and it really defeats the purpose. They're like looking like, why are you even here? You're eating rabbit food. You can go home and do that, you know. But I
mhm.
want to shout out Gold Professor, Father's Time, everybody that's putting the super chats in there, and anyone that's sending me cash apps. I appreciate that as well.
Salute,
Um,
salute.
Salute, thank you to you all in the chat. Thank you for coming. I was trying to see what AM1 and Crimson Cure were talking about. Um, let's see.
Mm.
It's hard to catch it
Yeah,
all.
they
What's going
come so
on?
fast sometimes.
Huh?
I said they come so fast sometimes.
Right.
And
It's passing by, and I had my screen up for my Word document. But it's funny because when you sent that, it's real funny to me because the more that we talk on here, it's like we think about similar topics, like similar
hmm
ideas and stuff, or we come across, and that's just algorithm that we're going to come across similar content. But I already had notes written. I had 3 pages of notes written about this
Oh,
particular.
really?
Yes. And all I did when you sent the email was incorporate parts of that video and other videos that I watched into it. And I was like, wait, I've seen videos like this before. So I started to go back and look through my archives and look through articles I've read about this. And I was like, oh, there it is. It's the whole folder and all this stuff. And you just put things away when you think about it. Well, I do it that way. I just put things away when I think about it.
hmm
And and I have a whole list in front of me of content that I need to do. And so a lot of different things. And that was like number 4 on the list. And I wrote down women who are happy and child free based on what you said. But before that, I had the title of environment had no space for children, and social hierarchy. Environment had space for children. Social hierarchy did not.
Mm.
Part 4 of the Mouse Utopia. The environment had space for them, because you had 3-to-1 ratio of young mice to old mice, and they never let the population get the live population get as high where they were. It was too much. It was like 80 to 90% capacity, and they would always take out the dead mice and stuff as much as they could, right? But the social hierarchy did not want more children. And so then I said, oh, wow, that goes right with the women who are quote unquote happy without children.
Yeah, less competition.
Yeah, less competition. I hadn't even thought about that. That is true though. Less competition to deal with the men that you have, but also the women in this video in a very twisted way. I could be wrong, but they seem to be like the beautiful ones, because the beautiful ones in the mass utopia they were in the middle, or kept away from the standard population. And in this prison utopia nightmare that they were going through, and they did not have children. They would fight off the others. They kind of just formed their own little group on their own. They didn't reproduce, and that was a decision they made. They had high stress, and they were not able to communicate well with those outside of that clique. In fact, if other mice came to the beautiful ones group, they would beat them up and attack them. That's what they try to attack, and not really, not one-on-one. They would have to be a group fighting, the invaders, as they called it. Because the ones who are the crazies that are having kids and running around and continuing their legacy, and able to somewhat produce something for them as much as they can, not really, but as much as they can, and at least have space for them to live and everything. They didn't want them around. They were like, we're the beautiful ones. We don't need your help. We got this. These are the ones that, in my opinion, based on the women I saw on the Guardian video, you think your shit don't stink. You think you finer than you are. You're a 6 who thinks you're a 9. On your way to becoming a 10. You're not a 9. You are a 6. Stop playing yourself. That's how I saw that. I don't know what you think about it, but let me know.
As you were expounding, I just thought about how Strags be clicking up to be trying to jump on the lionesses. That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, wow, like what you just described in Mouse Utopia, I was just connecting the dots like, what other group of set of women click up, and anybody that's of the out group, they write out attack, and it's like, yep, how do they attack? And, oh, you just another bunch of pick-me's and all this other stuff. I'm like, wow. So it's
for that word to show up in the video and it didn't,
yeah, it's man, there's so much to unpack just in those little tidbits. Because something else that I noticed on there as well was the woman giving their accounts of their family's reaction to their decision. And so they said that it wasn't the men who had issue with their decision. It was the women who had issue with their decision, talking about in their families and basically criticizing them and, trying to mentor them and give them an alternative perspective or maybe some, just basically giving them the chance to kind of think through what they're deciding on. And that was something that was across the board. They're like, yeah, like the women in my family, they said, you don't know what you're doing, you know what you're thinking. And then their response to it was, feminist ideology based paired with the environment where they're able to sustain and take care of themselves. So it reinforces that, this model works as their point of decision and where they're trying to go. And so, mind you, this video was released a month ago. So I'm not sure when this occurred or when they filmed this, but when I think about the external environmental factors, when it comes to COVID, when it comes to job loss, when it comes to automation, I wonder if they still have this same sentiment or if their viewpoint may have changed in regards to like, yeah, I'm not having any children, or, when it comes to dealing with men, that may be something that I may be willing to compromise on. That was something that I thought about, um, as I was listening, because environment does change people's behaviors and it does change people's minds.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and the fact that like I was saying earlier, and I know VGS has said this, and other people have said this. I mean, it's clear in the literature as well that, and you can just see it, just your own observations wherever you are. Everywhere I've lived, I've observed this, where it's like you have to make that decision, and it seems as though culture is slow um, to, first is the environment, then you have culture and biology. Biology being the slowest thing. That's hopefully not going to change. Um, it's like the weather. When the weather changes too quickly, for instance, here, if the weather changes too fast, we get lightning, we get a fire.
hmm
We have fires, off and on. We had ashes falling the other day, Sunday, because of the fire, so much fire
hmm
burning here. And that was a very fast, thing to occur. One day I'm driving down the freeway, it's 3:30. By 4 o'clock, there's a fire, but I passed the area where the fire started. I didn't see a fire. I didn't see any smoke. That was a very fast fire to pick up and just burn where people can't even drive on the freeway. So when the environment changes quickly, it goes against a standard biological imperative, or it makes it where you cannot make those biological decisions the way you should to procreate. Oh, thank you, Black Uru Strikes. Appreciate you. When that happens, yeah, it's hard. It comes down hard on everyone, but I think it comes down harder on women. Women are required to make these decisions, and these women are not, in my opinion, making the right decisions. These are final, terminal decisions that you're making. I will not have kids. Another video, the woman's like 20, I think she was 26. She went to the doctor. She wanted her tubes tied.
hmm
Do it. I think she got it done like in her late 20s, finally. So much paperwork to sign. That was in the UK. On the flip side of this, you see that this is not a huge thing that's happening because, like I said, I think some of these women are going to have regrets, like what you hinted to,
hmm
because the out of wedlock birth rate is going up. And I don't know when this was filmed. It did come out earlier, July 7th of this year, but I don't know when it was filmed. That's a good point. But let me shout out Black Uru again. He said, "Why do they deserve to be here more than the children they refuse to have? They steal resources and space from others who would continue our species." Yep.
Mm. And
Yeah. Good
oh, I'm
point
sorry.
right there. No, go ahead.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, right? Because, well, I wanted to touch on a little bit of what you mentioned in regards to the forest fire, right?
Mhm.
The decisions that we make as a species, they have a residual impact, right? So because we've been trained to be individualistic in this society, our thought process is what's good for us is good for the greater society, but you're starting to realize it doesn't necessarily work like that, because if like a group, a critical mass of people decide they don't want to have children, um, then what happens to community? And in regards to community, what happens to labor, what happens to economy, what happens to your country, so on and so forth, as you start to suss it out. So the decisions that are being made are they'll have a residual effect, and this is the problem. This is the challenge of our decade, right? Where it's like, what do you choose? Do you allow folks to, on an individual basis, decide they're going to do this on their best interest at the expense of your country? And obviously within there you have nuance of people's points of view, perspective, and ideology, but the overarching thing is environment and environment, because it doesn't matter what you feel as far as an ideology, if it doesn't line up with your environment or your biology, then you're going to have problems long term. Um, and then outside of that, the out of going to the out of wedlock birth rate piece, because we have an environment where, I mean, even if they decide to have kids, they have a means to do it without a man. You know, a lot of women are, you go to a sperm bank, or induce, you induce pregnancy through artificial means. The technology is there, and although the technology is there, what does the culture look like, right? Because it's not just, all right, I'm gonna just go down here and I'm gonna, impregnate myself. What does that conversation look like with the seed that you're growing? If you decide to have a man in your life, what does that look like in regards to him? If you're going to be taking care of this child in a certain capacity, what does that look like for your community at large, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much interdependence in regards to your own individual decision that isn't thought of. And that was something that I observed, and I was just like, sat back and thought, like, even to myself with my own personal decisions, like the things that you decide to do individually, you think doesn't have an impact, but it actually does. But it's going to happen. It's a domino effect. And so, I mean, we can see it now because it's a little bit more drastic, but a lot of the sentiments and minds, the mindset that was expressed here is a lot more common than it is, an outlier. It's not fringe. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
I was trying to, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, because it is environment. Because the environment, you cannot have it. Let's just be honest. Like what Erykah Badu said, absolutely true. I agree. I have agreed with that sentiment for a long time. In case anyone was wondering, 85% of people is followers. There are followers. You have to tell them what to do, step by step, day to day, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
If they get off the path of what you tell them to do, you have to reiterate what the consequences will be if you do not continue to do what you are supposed to do. It's not really what they're supposed to do, it's what you tell them to do, and they do it. That's 85%. Then you have the other, what was the 10%? Because you got 15% left. So 10%, they're the ones who are creative. They're the ones who make up, take advantage of everything. They exploit what they need to exploit and move on. They aggregate their resources, like AM1 is saying in there. They don't necessarily have the children. It's not expected sometimes, or even acceptable in their group. They do what they do. And people hold them in high regard because of their creativity. They think outside the box. Then you have 5% observers. They just sit back and observe. Dance puppets dance, pretty much, in my opinion. That's how I see it. And it is interesting sometimes, and one that we may not see people discuss the aggregation of resources. I see it all the time. People discussing aggregation of resources and whatnot when talking about children. And those two, we can have those conversations at the same time. You and I have had those conversations, I think, twice. And when we talked about Black plight versus procreation, and that was a good discussion that we had. My conclusion is that you still need children. I can't go in the lab and put my cells in a microwave and a baby pop out. I can't do that yet. I can't do that right now.
Yes. I'm glad you qualified that.
Yet. But I cannot do that. You have artificial wombs out here. I ain't about to get that mess. Now, I will do what I can to, if it's necessary to study it. Yeah, I'll study it and everything, and maybe aggregate some resources off of the commercialization of that particular product. No problem. Hey, I developed it. I should get paid off of that if that's what I developed, or help to bring forth to the market. Because to me, you can have both those conversations about these women that don't want to have children. I understand where they're coming from. For me, it was the optics of it at this particular time. It's very interesting that happened, that they released this at this time. I was like, what? And people are reading more and more. They're sitting at home. And, a lot of people like, it's Friday, you ain't got nothing to do. And they're reading and they're seeing like, hey, something is not right. You got that feeling like something ain't right. That's how I felt when I was watching that. Watching. And I could see in their eye, like I said in the email, I could see in their eye like something ain't right here. I know you said. And you're right. They said they don't want children. They did not say I don't want a man. So in other words, to me, and you have your own opinion about this as a man, but to me, that means I can go out here and be a hoe. I can do what I want to do. I can just do anything. But I don't want no kids. She can't have no kids, man. She can't have no kids. Don't want no kids. Like I just no kids. No, I can't do it. But if you are in a community, if you are a woman who is raised by women, big mama now, then having a child is, of course, it's hard work, but it's not a problem for you. But when you're in an environment where promoting big mamas, promoting the community, promoting having grandma help you, mama help you, and your grandma is not 35, when your grandma is old and has wisdom about herself. Has a Shahrazad Ali type of wisdom, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing type of, at least some knowledge about the world, then you don't really have to worry. And I think that's what these women are doing. They're worried about what? I don't know. It seemed like they're more worried about their money and aggregating resources. I get that. But they didn't say, and also they did not say in there, hey, like I said, they didn't say I don't want to have a man or men in my life. Women.
Plural.
In my life. Right. And I in general, I found it very problematic, but you go ahead, my bad.
Nah, I'm talking about a worldwide gynocracy out here, man. As far as just like the model that precedes the decisions basically the outcomes of the like going down this path as far as ideology, which I think that it's not discussed enough, and this is to me this is just a result of the socialization. But I'm off of acknowledging, but now I'm thinking, all right, now that we know or have an idea of what it is, what is the next step, so then we can figure out where to go or where this is going to turn out. Because if you have a dying, because if our population is already declining because folks aren't having children, right? What does that mean for your your normal standard of living? Because you don't live in a bubble, right? The job that you have, the people that you're around, the community that you are interacting with, all of that can change just based off of environment itself, because you have other people from other countries, you have other people with other interests that need to be addressed. And for the rank and file person, they're not necessarily thinking like the 85%. They're not thinking about that. And I think that we're given the current times that we're in, those 85 people, we don't really have the luxury to allow them to basically kind of roam and rummage around accordingly. Or the people who are at the 10%, they need to figure something out to actually address this. Because if you keep promoting this and you go down this rabbit hole, that affects everybody on the boat, and that's sort of my line of thinking when I think about this. I understand people have their own viewpoints and their own thoughts, but at the same time, this is we're all a team. And so I truly believe that this is the Mouse Utopia being played out in real time, because outside of this video, it connects to like, how do we even get here, as far as just external factors and forces and variables that took place before this. When the ladies were basically detracting from their elders or other women, they used it they use their advice or the things that they mentioned as sort of a relic or something that's just antiquated. It's like, what, like, why do women need to have children, right? Like, with like this idea of women having children, like a woman shouldn't just be tied to, like, basically you turned it into an ideology and removed the biology component of it, right? Which is what we're trying to speak to. Is like, okay, from an ideological standpoint, okay, you may have a point, you may have merit, but you're missing the bigger scope of what you're trying to say. Like, are you willing to, let the human race, for all intents and purposes, or your collective, die out? And it's like, well, I don't understand how it. I don't understand how my decision is gonna let them die out. It's like, well, you're a human, right? You are assigned to a certain group, whether you like it or not, right? If you don't have offspring, you don't have children, then that means that your next group. I mean, you're done. I mean, good, bad, or otherwise, we can add morals and other qualifiers to it, and how. Man, I'm going real black pill right now. As far as like why.
You're all right.
It's like like as far as like the way culture is designed, this is why culture is so sticky, and this is why it's important that you grasp, because we've been so trained to just think of basically just think of things in such an abstract and separate way. When you don't think about it holistically, you miss the gem in all of this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have children, you don't have a society, you don't have a species, then your species dies out. Whether or not that's something you care about, that's a whole nother discussion. But while you're here, you're still a part and connected to the human race or the human species, and even your subgroup. So you have a inherent a social responsibility that's baked in there that you're trying to divorce yourself from, that that's being missed in this equation, right? It has to be a balance here, It's like that person who I think about, that person who's in like the group project back in college. You have a group presentation, and it's like you have a whole bunch of smart people on the group, and all you did was just put your name on the group project while everybody else was just pulling all of their weight. It's like, what are you truly contributing to the bigger picture? And right now we're in a space where people are able to express their own opinion and have weight and validity to it, and miss the bigger part of it. And that's what we're combating against.
Yeah, I wanted to read a couple of hold on, BJS, I'm gonna get to you because you were saying something about where is it? Yeah, what West Coast African mentioned earlier. He said AKA Greece, AKA South Korea, exactly. So I'm waiting for that video, BJS. Hold on one moment. But I'm waiting for that Greece video when it comes out. Shout out to the LA movement. Shout out to Nameless Protagonist. Shout out to Mike V of the Black Brain Trust. Thank you for being here. Taylor, Valeri, Lions Time, baby. You better not start no mess in here today. Okay, Lions Time. Jerome, you better
behave thyself.
Jerome, what's going on? I'm just playing with you. Black Uru Strike said the main purpose of a mammalian female, human included, is to incubate and provide the nourishment to the next generation of mammals. That is why you have a womb and why you have milk-bearing breasts. Exactly. So that's what I was saying really, really early in the stream. Like you, that is your responsibility. That is part of your job as a female biologically. And so there's a huge misconception from my point of view where these women are not, they're not seeing, may not be seeing the value in that function in society, and they would prefer, because it seems they have a preference to lean towards their career, but they never, you can go back and watch their videos, these videos of it, and they never say the value of the intrinsic value of their career. What is the intrinsic value of your career? You can lose your job tomorrow. Look at what's happened with Rona. Like I said, this video came in a timely manner. You can lose your job. You can get sick and be dead tomorrow, next week or something from one of these strains of corona. So yeah, you're like, my job is what, and that's really all they had. On the UK Sky News one, they had the job, they had the parties with the salads and the wines and they had the sixes and the fives and the sevens, few sevens, and they were having drinks and chilling on the balcony. Okay, is that gonna be your life? That, to me, is lacking something, but I don't know. I could be wrong. What's going on, BGS? How are you doing? Salute.
I am good. I am good. And
Mhm.
uh, you know, that's why this is so interesting. That's like I'm actually highlighted your Mouse Utopia videos
Yeah,
is
thank
because
you.
the reason they did the reason I think they did the experiment is because they couldn't experiment on human beings the same way. So they tried to replicate a modern urban environment where there's no predators, plenty of food, heat, and all that kind of stuff. You just don't have space. You had this closed environment or closed artificial environment, and see what would happen.
Mhm.
Because mice have a culture, but it's not as complex as human culture. Human culture is very complex, and so they wanted to see if you stripped out as many variables as you could and just put them in there and just put the variables that you want in there to see what would happen, see if the same things would happen that's going to happen in the human population. And lo and behold, you know, if you look at, because I think you did a video called Seed,
Yes.
strive, exploit, equalize, and decline. I think that's what it stood for.
Um,
I think
I
it's what it's
think
something like that.
the
Yeah, but if you look at you look at each phase, right? It lines up perfectly with a population pyramid. Because
yeah, yeah, the clones that you talking about
hmm
different
it,
populations, the demographics, how they're changing and everything.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
From country,
and
region to region. Yeah, that's true.
because strive is always the beginning of the pre-industrialized, right?
Hmm.
Strive where you basically strive and trying to survive. So it looks one way. Exploit is when you get when you get rid of the predators and the diseases, you get plenty of food, and you get the big population explosion, which they call the B cycle, right?
Yeah.
And then after a while, what you see is happening, and I've showed it in charts where, whatever reason, it's a phenomenon that I don't think anybody understands why. I think they're still trying to figure it out. Women stop having babies. Like I noticed it in a chart with the United States in Western Europe, right? At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, basically the average um, fertility rate for women was like eight or nine, somewhere in there, right? By the
Hmm.
time the 20th century rolled around, it was down below three. In
Hmm.
100 years, it went from eight all the way down to three in 100 years, which in biological time is like a nanosecond.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you clipped that, I was not even expecting to talk about that
Hmm.
on that video
Hmm.
because I had to I had to pull back a little because sometimes I'll say things I'm like, that's might be a little too much, a little too black pillish,
Hmm.
you
Well,
know,
you're a scientist.
wavering a little bit,
Eh,
But I was like, you know what? Like something of mine was like, fuck it, just say it. I was like, okay.
mm-hmm.
So I said it because I knew that either you or West Coast or like a lot of other people that are here, or not many, but a few people would catch some of that. And
Hmm.
I did not want to speak directly to things that are happening
Hmm.
here. But I have seen that type of behavior before,
Hmm.
over and over with males and females. Between
Hmm.
males, it's very violent. Like
Hmm.
I said, and we can't even separate them sometimes because they are, once two of them start to fight,
Hmm.
the others that are there, when they see it, they start. I mean, I literally have seen mice that are in the midst of having sex, and he stop and go to fight.
Hmm.
It has happened. I'm like, whoa, dude, like we need you mating, we need you breeding over here. And he's like, oh, forget that. She ain't going nowhere.
Hmm.
He basically like, pull his pants up and just go run the fight.
Yeah, I got to prove my manhood. Yeah.
What are you doing, man? And they fight to the death. And that's just what it is. Hold on, mute. I'll be right back. Y'all keep going one moment.
Yeah. So I see a lot of people, they're trying to um, make this a social argument, and it's
Mhm.
not a social argument. So because we're saying what's happening in America and what's happening with Black people, with under these kind of conditions. Okay, what if you go to another country? Okay, say in the United States, it took to get down to this point where below replacement, it took like 150 years, right?
Yeah.
In South Korea, because they actually more rapidly industrialized, right? South Korea's fertility rate was 6 in 1960, right?
Mhm.
60 years later, they're below 1.
Mm-hmm.
They're at 0.88, which is on recorded history that's never happened before.
Right.
0.88, and
That's
they're having issues. Yeah, it's South Korea. Yeah,
oh, wow.
0.88. And so basically, so it's not something that's cultural. It has to be something that's environmental, because Greece has the same problem. South Korea has the same problem. Japan, we expected to see out of Japan because we thought it was just cultural. Turns out it's not. Okay, it's
Mhm.
not, because worldwide, the only places that are above replacement are on the continent of Africa. Everybody else is at replacement or below. And
Mhm.
that cannot just be a cultural phenomenon. It has to be an environmental phenomenon. And every time you industrialize basically any sector, any society, you put them on this track. So
Mhm.
basically, that seed cycle that you show is really important. That's like people kind of blow off the mouse utopia, okay? Because it doesn't track with humans are not mice, and humans are not this, that, or the other. And I said, but Nicole, as a scientist, parallels are parallels. It doesn't have to be exact.
It doesn't matter. And it's true. Like if I might have grew up West Coast, but if you even if it does not exactly match up with humans, it may not match up at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So they can use the mouse utopia, not just mouse utopia, but there's every mouse environment is a mouse utopia. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they established. I don't know if people caught that, but that's what they established by doing the Mouse Utopia experiment, is that every other environment that you set up for mice, have them in cages, have them in, a chip in their head, or have them in large groups where they have to live together, or small groups.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all mouse utopias, whether they're big or small. And you can use that to predict behavior. You can use that to assist in how you're developing your policy,
Mm-hmm.
or how we're going to develop treatments for human beings. Because
Mm-hmm.
some trials have to be done where humans, the subjects they have to stay there, like a sleep study, for instance. They have
Mm-hmm.
to stay there, some kind of psychological testing, because they know there could be violent, aggression that occurs as a result of that particular drug. So you
Yeah.
need to monitor with cameras and everything,
Yeah.
and so that goes to, like, it doesn't have to match, it's not an exact science, but it can be used to tell what will happen in 10 years, what will happen in 20 years, you know, with humans if we did this. That's
Mm-hmm.
why when I talked about was universe, I think it was universe 25.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like, oh, this is the first time they did it. No. And they actually asked they asked Dr. Calhoun when he thinks the mouse utopia would become a reality with the current, at that time, with, I think it was like late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
What year did he think? And he reluctantly said 1984, which I
Oh
thought,
yeah. Well, the thing is, that's how come. That's when I asked Nicole, because I started doing it. I said, "Have you?" I said, "You can't count years or time, because mouse time and human time is different, right? Because you have to count generations. How many
right.
generations does it take to see this effect? How many generations from start to finish do you get what they call the die-off phase?"
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I actually have a question to that. Do us as humans have the potential to evolve to basically deal with this new environment that we've constructed, like post-industrial, right? If
Nobody,
we
nobody knows, because it's never happened before.
It's like, because if you've seen this theme, happen across country to country to country, and
Hmm.
all eyes is on Africa, right?
Hmm.
is is there gonna be, are we evolving ourselves out of existence as a species? That's something that I think about in regards to just cute biological reaction to what we've created as far as a space for ourselves.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can actually, unless something biological happens, because it's not biological. Because I think the mice are perfectly able to reproduce. They just don't.
That's one thing they said at the end of an article on the utopia. They said on the other side of the gender spectrum, the female mice in Calhoun's experiment stopped conceiving altogether.
Oh, really? I mean, so even with sex.
Yeah.
Even with
So
sex.
like we were saying earlier, West Coast and I were saying earlier, these women are saying, I don't want children. They didn't say they didn't want men. So something biological happens. They said towards the end of the experiment, only 18% of the females were having successful conceptions. So they were just having sex to have sex, and they were not conceiving. They were also, they did not change their, their sleep cycle. So with mice, when you have them in a controlled setting, they're on the same sleep cycle as us, which is reverse estrus, meaning that they're awake in the day and they sleep at night, which is reverse of what they normally do. That does affect the estrus cycle, but over generation after generation, something epigenetically changes in them where that standard is natural. And if you try to switch it, they would not behaviorally respond positively, be really adverse effect to that. Meaning if you try to switch them back to being awake at night, being nocturnal, they wouldn't like that after about 3 or 4 generations. So they think that that could have had something to do with the changing in conception. That conception went down to 18%, from 100% to 18%. But even there, only one embryo would be conceived, but usually there was like 5 to, well, I've seen up to 10 pups from one female. It was like her first litter, but unfortunately I didn't make it in there in time and she ate them all. She killed them all. So it was every first litter of pups that mice females had, the first litter, they kill them.
Okay.
And that we can't figure that out either, but they kill them. So we have to separate them as soon as they had the pups. But in this utopia, they went from having 5 or more pups to 1.
To 1. Yeah, that's an amazing parallel, because you've seen that in the human population. I think the reason they had already seen the phenomenon in the human population, but they couldn't understand it. So that's how come they did it with mice. So because in the human population, you can't control all the variables. With mice, you have a better chance of doing it.
Yeah, you can. And they were saying that when they had a successful birth, remember they're only having 1. The mothers lost interest in taking care of the draw. They didn't have motivation to take care of the babies. So they had to, like, when they're first born, it looks like a hot pink jelly bean. Like they don't have eyes. It's like 2 little dots where the eyes would be. That's what they look like when they're born. So
that's why they call them pinkies, huh?
Yeah, little pinkies, and they the ones that are like really, really small, like a Dippin' Dot, you're not gonna make it. Like we just kind of already know they're not gonna develop, and the mother usually eats it. But if they're a certain size, then we know they'll probably make it. And after about maybe 3 or 4 days, they start to have a little fur. They start to develop. The mother, she's constantly taking care of them and constantly moving them around and stuff, doing what she's got to do. But in this case, the mother stopped taking care of them, or they would try to carry them from place to place, and they would lose them. They would drop them. They would get stepped on. They try to, I guess, get help, because the older females would normally help the younger females with their children, but they weren't around. They're dead, or they're doing something else. Or they're doing something else, not just because they just want to have sex and do whatever they want to do. They only had 1 child, you. So they had you and they left. So you got to fend for yourself, and that it's a never ending cycle. And what they said was that there was no reason for the reduction in birth rate to happen except for this, because of this special environment. They didn't have any diseases. And it seemed like the people that observed this, it seemed like the females forgot what they were supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Or
it's
there's an environmental trigger after there's a big enough population. There's overcrowding females. Maybe there's a biological trigger that we don't know about.
yeah, yeah. Like I was thinking, well, is it well, I don't know if this has been discussed, but is there such thing as like a biological kill switch in humans in regards to reproduction based off of environment and settings? And
In the Lucifer principle, they said they found it amongst men. If men felt that they were um, felt that they were not useful or worthy, that male suicide goes up. So so they called that a kill switch. So there may be one in women, but differently.
And like I was thinking about because BGS, I think it was you who mentioned about the male infertility rate amongst the pink people. I was
Yeah.
wondering if that was based off of environmental factors or something similar to what we're seeing with what Nicole is describing in the women in regards to how they interact and behave, like, a biological effect.
Well, the thing is, you got to remember, you got trillions of cells that do trillions of different things, and when you put it in an environment that's so complex and give it a intelligence and a culture and stuff like that, there's so many variables that you really can't tell. So basically, you try to, if there's a phenomenon that shows up, you try to observe it, try to figure out why is this population of these people doing this, right? So that's what it is. So now really what are we trying to do is actually trying to find parallels, because well before they even did the experiment, they saw the phenomenon in humans.
Right.
So they're trying to figure out, is there something that's causing this phenomenon that they can correct, or is it just something, if you put people in urban, in a utopia, which the first world is a utopia, comparatively to what we would normally find ourselves in. It's a utopia. If you put creatures in this utopia, what is the result? Can they sustain themselves? Will it go up and down? Is there a correction? And
that's what Nameless just said. See that autocorrect.
Yeah. And so forth. If the mouse utopia is any indication, there is no autocorrect. Eventually what will happen in human populations is the civilization will crumble and not be able to work, and then you go back to the old environment that you're in, and then whatever will kick in, and you would start again. You have to start rebuilding, because human populations have gone up and down, up and down, up and down since we've been here. It'll collapse down to a low number, and then it'll build itself back up.
Yeah, because they're saying that every birth after a certain point, because you mentioned once before, BGS, that after a certain point in the population, after the population gets to a certain number, it's hard to control. It's hard to control people, and it's hard to like it's like herding cats. I think he said.
Cats, yeah.
Because they're just doing what they're doing. They're clicking up. You have hunting parties. They're going to, and exactly what happened in the Mouse Utopia experiment. They had their own little hunting parties, little gangs. The older mice didn't really form the gangs because there was no utility to do that. But if you're closer to the food and you're younger, and there's 6 of you and you're all males, you're probably sexually frustrated because the females are kind of like they're plentiful, but you're just okay. They're there. I can get them whenever I want. You're gonna try to protect the food from this other group of guys, that's farther away, and so they over there far away plotting to get to the food. You're defending it. They're often, it's back and forth. So that's where you have the gangs and the hunting parties that developed. But one thing that Calhoun, I wish I could have taught him. Well, I wasn't alive, but talk to him some kind of way about it, or somebody who is still alive who may have collaborated with him later or something, because their hypothesis was at what point does the birth rate become extraneous, where it's just extra, it doesn't really mean anything, because there's a limited social hierarchy that's occurring. So an alpha mouse is basically forced out of the territory. It can be forced out of the territory, and that happened a lot. And when their alpha is forced out of the territory, that's usually closest to the food and females, they have to find a new home. Then you call that his kingdom, his utopia.
Mm-hmm.
That's taken over. Somebody else comes in. So even within the mass utopia, you saw like a faux type of monarchy even develop. Different monarchies that you could kind of see that happening, where you have this is like the main mouse, he's the king of this area, he does this, and all the women, he has a harem, and he does this and that. And so what he mentioned, what I'm trying to say is Dr. Calhoun and some of his collaborators are mentioning, like, they didn't realize what they witnessed till it was over with.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the progression of human civilization occur within the utopia, from monarchies to we're going to have some kind of rule and regulation, to not really industrialization. They didn't put any new technology in this utopia.
No.
Over time. So this is without new in no industry. This is without industry. This is without technology coming in and changing things, and you have the same effect, which tells you that what we have is happening very quickly. What happened with the mice is slow.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's slow with mice, it's much better. Like I was saying earlier with West Coast, when things happen too fast, changes in weather or whatnot.
Yeah.
So when things happening slowly, they were able to see, okay, right there, that's what we can do this in society. Okay, right there, we can do that in society. Or we've seen this in society, for instance. But it was a good study. All the ones we do now is in a way modeled after when we do our ethics certification before we can submit a protocol. It basically follows some of the same points of the mass utopia. Like, you have to follow these rules. Are you doing this with the mice? Are you doing that with the mice? I was telling Uru in the chat that we can't just, they're on the same cycle with us. Like, they're awake in the day, and at 7 a.m. the lights come on. 7 p.m. the lights go off automatic. You cannot walk in there after 7 p.m. when the lights are off. It completely disrupts their sleep cycle. So they may not be sleeping there, but they should be sleeping there. To them it's nighttime, but unless we want them to mate, they're not mating. They're in all males, all females in a cage together. Sometimes we come in there and there's a cage where I put testosterone pellet in them on a Monday, and then by that Thursday I went to check. It was 5 male mice in there, and one of them was alive. The other 4 were dead.
Really? Okay. They had attacked each other.
Yeah, and the one that was in there, like, he was, like Rocky Balboa. Like, he literally was standing on top of one of them. Like, yeah, nigga, I got this, da da da. He was like, he had blood all over him. He was just a mess. Like, whoa, what the heck? Like, what happened? But I realized that the testosterone concentration I used was too high.
Okay.
And at the end, they fought to the. There's blood all on the cage, like all on the, everywhere. I was like, oh my God, like he went crazy. I had to put him down, but I took his blood to see what was the issue, what was going on, because I wanted to know. And testosterone level off the chain. I was like, just off the charts. And I was like, dude, what? So you don't know? Like, that was not even an experiment. That was just to prep for the surgery. I had to prep for to do surgery. To do what I have to do. And so you never know what can happen. They didn't know that this would happen in their study.
You can't actually control all the variables. You do something and then you see what the effect's going to be. Sometimes you get an effect that you're surprised by, and I think the die-off was actually what surprised Dr. Calhoun.
And it's funny, as you were basically explaining how you set up the structure in this culture for the mice, even deciding when they're going to decide to mate and when they aren't. It sounds like, you know, some of the old pattern cultures when they when they had arrangements like, okay, this is when the young will get together and copulate and marry and then go off and be able to run society. So it it is, I see the parallels as you were describing, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, I got a chart. I got a chart up about the fertility rate of South Korea, because I was actually mentioning it first a while back, and how quickly that this effect can actually happen. And I don't know if Nicole can share it or not, but in like I said, in 1960, the fertility rate was over 6, and by 1995, like 25 years later, they were below replacement. And now, in 2020, they're below 1, which is, like I said, unheard of.
Right.
And that's how quickly it can happen. So we're not talking about 100 years, 20 years. We're talking about they first started really industrialized to like first world status in 1960 when the electronics came in, when the chips started being manufactured there. And just like that, this is post-war, just that quickly went from 6, which is basically where Africa is right now, within a matter of like 60 years, they're below 1, they're below replacement. That's how fast it can happen.
And you know what, as we're discussing this, I was thinking of like viable solutions. I was thinking about, well, on one hand, I was thinking about some of the posts that you had, Nicole, in regards to like the artificial chicken, the KFC is coming out, and you're just thinking about some of the variables that can be controlled. And, obviously, if the goal is saving humanity or preserving humanity, how can you artificially create a space where people are incentivized to basically not go down, basically not in the life cycle. I was like, man, maybe like the idea of peanut butter spreading people outside of into rural areas, decentralizing, so then they have their own little personal enclaves, or even as extreme as they talking about us living on Mars, or having a certain set of people living on Mars and living in a harsh environment in order for all of these ideologies that have been coming up, because our environment is so insulated, to basically continue on and progress forward as a way to avert the level of catastrophe that that we are on track to potentially face. We don't know, but the signs and the reactions and what we've been observing are there. And so that was something that comes to mind. I'm like, wow, maybe
it would come to mind if you didn't have competition from outside societies and societies and other people. Because I actually showed it in my last live stream, why a stabilized, or the C cycle, I think that's the equalized cycle, is so important to like first world or post-industrial countries, is because if you do not, and your society starts to decline, the other countries will actually start to dominate you, through the world, through try to invade or try to gain territory from you. They'll try to, as far as business, as far as trade, you can't enforce your will. The United States has been able to enforce its will. Europe has been able to enforce its will, but at a certain point, they won't be able to.
You know what?
Like Japan used to, but Japan doesn't have the people to do it anymore.
Right. And you know what? That actually, I get it now. It's because I've been following the Tragedy and Hope piece, and like understanding those charts and understanding why it's necessary to be in that C cycle and not going to geriatric. That and listening to Foundation. You done got me messed up. Just merging the two together. I'm like, okay, now that makes sense. Because
how do you correct for it? Which is, like I said, that's like when I was doing the series about those two cycles, the C and the D, or the what she would call the E, the last E, and the D, which is the decline phase. The out of wedlock births are actually help preventing the population from going into the decline phase, or at least slow it down.
Right, because you need a population. And how do you stabilize without being overwhelmed by competition?
We have to stabilize, because if you don't, you're gonna get pressure. Like United States started to decline, and now China's putting pressure on them. Okay, economic pressure on them, just like they did it to them back in the 19th century.
Exactly.
They did the same thing to China. China started to decline in population. And so when the Europeans were on the B cycle, came in with their weapons and stuff like they were ready to impose their will on them.
Mm-hmm. Things are cycles, and you have to be prepared for the cycle, the downturn of the cycle, because it might be you this time. That's just the way that things work. And there are other studies that are done where they look at how how things like that happen on a smaller scale. I know somebody was talking about this because with the mouse utopia, you have those different cycles that happen, and that was the thing. That's why I was saying earlier, even though it's not possible to speak to Dr. Calhoun or some of his collaborators, just like, what were you thinking? Did you have any idea that this could actually happen in civilization? What was the process of going about, conducting this? Because you have to put yourself in, like you say, BGS, put yourself in leader's shoes. Well, put yourself in the investigator's shoes. I put myself in their shoes all the time. And when I'm thinking about every day, you have to go, somebody has to go and check on the mice to see how they're growing. When they put the first Eves and Adams into that utopia, the first generation, they fought like cats and dogs, primarily because, like I said, you can't put more than one male in a cage. You can't do it. Even when you got, like, you have 4 males and 4 females, it don't matter, because the two or three of the males, one of them gonna be like, I don't care, I'm high value, and
No, you did.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. I know
the women come to me. I'm gonna sit up here and chill with all my cedar chips and my water. I'm good, and he ain't gonna do nothing. And he's gonna chill, and so the other people gonna be like, forget all that. They gonna run to one female and corner her ass in the corner.
Nobody said this so far, and I know they haven't said it, right? Because I just got on, right? Miss Nicole.
Yes.
Thou are not shit, ma'am.
At all.
I never claim to be.
Whoa, yeah, that's funny.
Shit. Yes, I know. But I could just imagine. You have to imagine that. Like, you got 3 males and they like, you ain't gonna get it for me. You ain't gonna get it for me. I'm gonna high value than you. I'm gonna high value than you. Blah, 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 blah. And they run over there and she's like, ain't none of y'all niggas shit. Like,
yeah.
But I'll take him because he got a nice fade. Okay, he got his hair cut. Okay, he got that iced out watch. Boy, you look good. Yeah, I'm good. I got the threads. I'm good. Everything. I got this card. You want to go on a date? Okay, let's go, y'all. That's how it is. He swiped, right or whatever, and was like, "Hey." The other girl sitting there at the little tea party, man, can't stand that hoe. She always getting me and That's what you had. But it was their turn. It was her turn at that point, and it was their turn later. And they all got along at some point. And that is another thing that I was thinking about too. Incest was, of course, rampant. This particular thing, and that shows you that even with incest occurring, because we inbreed the mice all the time, but even the black 6 mice we have, they're inbred. But the differences in the differences between what you saw as behavior with the mice compared to human, not much difference, even with inbreeding of the mice. So that's another thing that I thought I should mention. But Larry said something here. He was asking, he said, BGS, will a bachelor tax incentivize people to have kids in this new reality? Shout out to Go Professor.
Well, the bachelor tax that you're talking about is called welfare and child support in Section 8. Okay, those are the bachelor taxes that they put on the whole society to actually induce women to have more children. In fact, I was looking for the article. I found it years ago, and I should have saved it, or at least remember where I saved it, where they actually where the the fertility rate actually went up when they changed the welfare laws. In other words, they had limited to the welfare to like no more than 2 children, and for I think it's like maybe 6 or 7 years where they actually increased it to like 3 or 4 children, and the fertility rate actually went up actually 1 child, when actually 1 point by them doing that. And you notice when Bill Clinton came in, he actually the the welfare to 2 children. You can actually see the fertility rate just drop, and it's been dropping ever since. And as so what they tried to do was actually increase the child support money that the women could get to induce them to have children, and that worked for a while. But it eventually what's going to happen is happening right now, where women are just not having children. You have like then and I've seen studies where they said you can actually tell by the generation, as generations go past, you have less and less and less children. Like the greatest generation had averaged about 4, and then the boomers averaged about 2.5, and then the X's are about 2, and then millennials are less than 1, and then the Z's, who are just coming up. A lot of Z's with females are saying they're not going to have children at all. And a lot of guys, Z men, are saying they won't have children at all. They're not going to reproduce.
Yeah, so, my mother's mother, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, she comes from a family of 10 children, and then she had 5, and then my mom has 3. And my dad's side, my paternal grandparents, it was like 18, and his family was 15, and he's number 14 out of 15. Same mom, same dad, and that's not including the kids that my grandfather, my dad's father, that had outside of the marriage. So he had way more than 15 kids. I think he had probably 18, 19, because
he's an alpha mouse
out there. Huh?
He's an alpha mouse.
It was like, wow, okay. And 15 down to my dad, who had 3 with my mom, and one with another lady, and one with another lady. So 5.
Okay.
So 15 or 19 down to 5 that in one generation. Like that's a huge difference. And I'm like, wow. So that is true to see that.
And you're probably you're gonna have 2?
I don't know. Hopefully I'll just have twins and get it over with, because
I said that when I was young.
I'm just like, I'm done. Like because I already have to deal with the fact that I have Jason already has children, and so that's a lesson right there. And I'm learning, like, oh my God, it's so hard. But I'm learning. I'm like, okay, I know what to do. I know what not to do, this and that. And they have their own little personalities and their own little, I don't like bananas. I don't like Cheetos. I like Cheetos, but not hot Cheetos. I'm like, oh Lord. So I'm gonna, figure all that out.
Too much choice.
Yeah, and the discipline, having that, because that is coming as the discipline and the structure with all the COVID going on, and not going to school, but then having to stay home and everything. And there is no like sharing the responsibility, like you're going to do this and I'm going to do this. And no, we all do everything together, and it's better that way, because once we have ours, then it's like they're going to have to, we already have that on board, that routine of having everybody do everything. Like, you see me doing this, you're going to have to do this. We do everything all together. Like, this is what it is. And that's why I feel like with the women who don't want to have children, I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, I'm saying
But get your shit together so you can afford it. Come on.
Is it a conscious choice, or is it being informed by the environment? That's the thing. It's not, because there's too many of them. So that's the thing we're trying to determine. Is it the environment that's actually informing it, or is this just a conscious choice because they've been socialized, or is it a mixture of both?
I think that's the same thing, because the environment, like one was saying earlier, he was talking about, you want to aggregate your resources. Well, you have to be conditioned to know to aggregate your resources. You have to be conditioned to know that resources are more important than having a child.
Well, basically, if you think about it, because when we say aggregate resources, we're talking about an individual person, right? But if you look at the structure of the United States, especially now, you already have aggregated resources. Because
Yeah.
if you just look at COVID, right? To feed people, right? The enormous amount of money and resources spent just to feed people that didn't for free. You know, those are aggregated resources. Your electricity, your fuel, your banking, and all this kind of stuff. You know, you don't build your own house. You don't basically you don't kill your own animals. You don't even grow your own food. Those are aggregated resources. Now it's a complex structure we call money that where we actually keep count of people's activity and investment into the society. But thing is, those are what you see around you is aggregated resources, because the streets that you drive on are not independently owned. They're actually public streets. Those are resources. We don't think that they are sidewalks, street lights, streets, and all that kind of stuff, and waste systems, or we don't think them as aggregated resources, but they are. Because you go to the continent, you learn pretty quickly that those are not about getting rid of your waste, where you're gonna find water, if you can get electricity. Okay, if you had to do that individually, it's very difficult.
Yeah, because your taxes are paying for that.
Mhm,
The upkeep of that, your
mhm,
aggregated resource. I mean, you can go as far, now that I think about it, parks and recreation,
mhm.
the police officers,
Yeah,
elected officials,
yeah,
you elect somebody, but you didn't put money in their campaign. So
yeah,
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 you need to put money on them. And you've literally aggregated that resource because they're speaking for you. You're paying them to speak for you.
yeah. Because
So I can, yeah, and see, but if you're not brought up to think that way,
yeah,
then because you've never lacked for anything,
yeah, yeah,
um, then the rug is pulled from under you.
yeah,
It's like, what? What do I do? You're stuck. You're lost and don't know how to get out.
yeah. Because you're taught to think like an individual follower.
Yes.
Instead of the people that actually control and lead. People at the top, they think like that. You
Right.
know, they think like that. If you're gonna move, say if you're Jeff Bezos, you want to uh, uh, open up an Amazon plant. First thing you're gonna check is for roads, electricity,
Hmm.
water, and all that kind of stuff. Because if it's not already there, you're not gonna put it in there. So you're not gonna move there because there's no aggregated resources we call infrastructure to support you. So everybody uses it. Everybody prospers from it. Because if you think about it, in Los Angeles, um, I think the water main that burst that they had to replace, like on our street, had been in the ground like 100 years, almost 100 years before they actually came in and replaced it. So what I'm saying is those resources, a lot of your resources like streets, roads, power couplings and water mains, those are things that have been around there 50, 60, 70 years.
Bridges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bridges. Yeah.
Because a lot of places around are working on, and that was another thing that was mentioned.
Hmm.
The building of infrastructure. Mike V made a good point right here. I see you, Nameless. Hold on 1 minute. But Mike V said public infrastructure is an aggregated resource, correct?
Hmm.
And the implementation and maintenance or repair of an aggregated resource that's public infrastructure, such as a bridge,
Hmm.
such as a train or something. You
Hmm.
mentioned it.
Yeah.
And that goes to the differences in societies, liberal versus what would you say it was? The
Authoritarian. Yeah.
authoritarian,
Yeah.
I won't say dominant, but authoritarian type of
Well,
society.
basically the actual word for it is authoritarian.
Hmm.
In fact, they used it. I pulled it out of forget what book I pulled it out of, and I pulled it out because my other show. It's got to be like 13 years ago, and we're actually going. I was actually studying this, and authoritarian came up versus liberal, and this is before Tragedy and Hope. And I mentioned it on air on my show, and they started using it because those are the old terms. Okay, we use democratic, and we use We use democratic and communist and socialist, all that kind of stuff. But those really don't mean anything, because the difference between a communist China versus socialist, say Sweden or Norway or even the UK, is that one is liberal and one is authoritarian. That's the only difference.
Everybody has their, like you said, which makes sense. Everybody has the ability to say what they want to say, give their opinion, and but nothing gets done like in a timely fashion.
Yeah,
that's not how, like in my field, that is not how things go.
It's not efficient.
It is. We wouldn't get nothing done. Like, listen to these people talk about what they want to do with the experiment. Kick rocks. Like, we ain't about
to. There's pluses and minuses to authoritarian versus liberal. The good thing about liberal is because it's creative, right? Because say an idea that's not in favor, if it's a good idea, eventually can bubble to the top. Okay, when an authoritarian regime or country, okay, once there's a ceiling, right, then those ideas that are not in favor, they can't bubble to the top. They can't become dominant because they don't have a chance, because the decisions are being made from up top, right? Okay, this is not in favor, but this is. So a liberal societies have value. Okay, they have pluses and minuses. So like Nicole can come up with a new idea in an authoritarian society, she would be locked down. Okay, well, the party says that this is not in favor because it's going to do this, that, and such, and we don't like it. So Nicole, you can pack that away, and we have something else for you to do, right? But in the United States, they can say, okay, how widespread is this, and how good of an idea is? They will actually look at it, right? And eventually, what will happen is that it will bubble to the top. Like an authoritarian society, we would have never had digital cameras. We'd still be using film. But in a liberal society, even though Kodak was out of favor with digital photography, he could take it someplace else and have it made, and eventually that idea bubbles to the top and becomes dominant, which is the difference between a liberal society and authoritarian society. But this is way off the subject. It's way off the subject.
We have to. I missed a super chat, Mike. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not. It's not too far. It's not to have people think about stuff because it's happening right now. Other people, the books that you're talking about, and some of the books I bring up, and different concepts I bring up. These people that were writing these things. Either it was already happened in the past. Or it's like, I'm predicting what will happen. The Mouse Utopia is a prediction. Yeah. But we're going through stuff right now that they have written. And so there's a different effect that it will have. But I think it's very important to talk about it. And Mike was saying, he said there's a debate going on now about whether or not the internet should be considered public infrastructure, which would democratize it and put the power of it in the hands of people.
Yeah, it's the same thing that went on with the Huguenots in France, and where they didn't want the printing press because it would democratize knowledge and put it in the hands of regular people, or more and more people. So it's the same thing. It's the control of knowledge, and basically, if you can control knowledge, you can control people. What happens when you democratize it? Then you can't control knowledge anymore. We use this all the time. Social media is actually making policy where they couldn't before.
Yeah. So, changing of the which would then change the environment.
Which was just change the social environment. Whereas social environment didn't used to be as important as the physical environment, but now since we've gotten to the point where the physical environment is pretty much automated, and it's not unstable, but it basically, in a first world country, even your homeless eat better than working people in other places. Okay, so it's basically your basic needs are already met, and if they allow homeless people to actually pitch tents or set up infrastructure someplace else, they wouldn't even need a house, right? All you have to do is find a way how The only reason that you don't want them scattered around is because what do you do with the waste? They don't have bathrooms, right? So you have a public environment of these huge cities, and if you don't do something with the waste, you get outbreaks of bubonic plague and cholera and all other kind of stuff. What do you do with the waste? Okay, but just like they do in third world.
Well, I've seen how what we deal with here on the internet and with social, well, not necessarily social media, but with communication. What Mike B was just saying, he's responding to the nameless protagonist, and he said during COVID-19, most Black people did not have high-speed internet for remote learning. So now we have a true digital divide. So that's kind of what I was, an example of what I was talking about, because my mom was saying how a lot of her students did not have access to the internet. We, at my house where I'm from, we barely have access ourselves because we're in the woods so far.
Yeah.
And it's very rural out there. And so things have had to change locally in South Carolina in many areas to get that, so that people have access.
And
So that,
if they can do it, is that if they can dump $10 trillion into the stock market in 2 months, they can spend whatever they need to get the kids that can't go to school and with COVID high speed access. It's not that big an issue. We got plenty of machines. We can actually lay high speed fiber in an ocean within a year. We can actually put up high speed fiber or whatever you need within a couple of months to get people high speed access. It's not that difficult.
it's the priorities.
It's a priority. And basically you gotta if it were me, I'd be putting pressure on them. Look, and point it out, because it's in the literature. You just dumped $10 trillion into the stock market, right? Because of COVID-19, to protect airlines, to protect large businesses, to protect bankers, the stock and stakeholders, right? Now they got these poor kids in, wherever they are, right? South Carolina, right? That they can't go to school because of this thing, because they can't do remote learning because they don't have internet fast enough. You can do something. Don't say that you can't. Don't say there's no money, because you just spent tons of it. You just gave it away free when you gave away people $600 a week as a stimulus. You could have put some of that money into connecting these kids, to internet. It's not, the thing is you got to stop listening to these people's bullshit, because the tech is there. The tech is there. Well, if you pay Mike will come up with a solution.
Hey, peace to the panel, peace to the host as well, Nicole. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I worked on a project a couple years ago, back in 2017, 2016, for municipal Wi-Fi, right? And it's actually a bit of a challenge. And so the cost to lay down fiber in the city of Boston would cost anywhere between roughly $180 to $210 million. And so they already have fiber for the government, but the government doesn't want to share their fiber with the civilians.
Right.
So that's where the challenge is. And now we're having this big discussion about, well, you want these kids to, work remote. They went out and bought all these Chromebooks, but then they found out that not all these Black kids have access to the internet. So what are you going to do? So they went out and bought all these hotspots. Well, that wasn't enough, because the infrastructure that they have in place isn't adequate enough to take on all of these Zoom calls.
You need a landline. You need some kind of fiber landline or something similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you need 5G. That's really the case. And they
if you're going to go wireless, okay, in a city like Boston, because you have old infrastructure, right, streets and stuff like that. You have to dig up old infrastructure to actually replace something, right? In rural South Carolina, you don't have all of that, right? It's dirt.
Right. There's a lot of dirt and swamp.
Dirt and swamp. The thing is you don't have to dig up concrete. Okay, you don't have to block off streets and dig up concrete. So the cost is much, 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 much less. You can actually lay it down. All you need is a machine to dig a trench, and people actually connect the fiber, or at least the point of access to the fiber, and actually distribute it. Okay, so there's a big difference between urban city like Boston or the Northeast versus South Carolina.
Yeah.
Right. And what they did is they ended up running the fiber over the telephone poles, the old telephone poles.
Yeah.
So, the thing is,
but you see what you just said. That makes too much sense. Okay. Something so simple we can't even get people in my state has had an F since February when it comes to wearing masks and keeping distance. Okay, so yeah, continue, please.
No, this has been an ongoing debate the last couple of years about high speed internet and the cost of it. In South Korea, they get big internet packages for $10. In the United States, you're paying Comcast and Verizon $300 a month for this whole TV package and everything that goes with it.
Authoritarian versus what? A liberal.
Versus liberal.
Yeah,
liberal. We argue about simple stuff. Authoritarian, they say, "Oh, how much? Do we have it? Okay, do it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my suggestion to the city is that all of the libraries that's in these black neighborhoods should have these 5G networks on it, because you have 5G for like AT&T, Verizon, all the service providers, but you also have 5G bands for government what do you call it, white spaces. So these spaces are auctioned off every year, so they have enough space and enough capacity available from a 5G standpoint. But the beef with China is that China was providing the infrastructure for this, but then when Trump came into office, all that stopped. So now you have a big tech gap in terms of your development between what ZTE and Huawei was able to provide and what the rest of the domestic enterprises were not able to provide.
You use the infrastructure, use the technology that you have. Okay, it might be a little bit more difficult, it might be a little slower, but you do have technology to do it.
It's tapped out, BGS.
What I'm saying is, if you're using wireless, dig a motherfucking trench, right? Route the fiber over your utility poles if necessary. You can do it. You have the tech to do it. It's not. Is it perfect? No. Is it what you want? No. But the thing is, it can be done with the technology that you have.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you, Black Gnostic. I'm just saying the pushback is that how the money gets spent. The city manager, right? The fiduciary who handles all these projects and finances all this stuff. This person's unelected. And so the problem I have is how they spend the money. It's because most of the area, because most of the city is non-white, they don't have a vested interest in advancing it in these areas. And so, it's a lot of bureaucratic red tape. Compounded with all these infrastructure issues. And so the debate now is, well, if it's going to, if the internet is considered a utility, it should fall under public infrastructure. And why aren't we just paying for it?
If the city's not doing it, take it. If the local governor doesn't want to do it, appeal to Caesar.
Shout out to
appeal to the Fed, right? Appeal to the Fed. You just fucking dumped $10 trillion in 2 months into the stock market to actually bail out the fat cats. I actually have a chart on my community tab about how many billions of dollars that Bezos and Gates and what's his name, Elon Musk made over the last 3 months. We're talking about the minimum of $15 billion each that they added to their net wealth. You just dumped all this freaking money into the market. You dump this freaking money into stimulus. You can dump a couple of $1 billion in it to give these kids high-speed Wi-Fi till you can actually figure out what you did with your fuck up. You guys created this mess. Okay, because you're trying to be slick. Now you're trying to correct it. But the thing is, if you can bail out the fat cats, you can bail out the kids too. What's really going on, man, is that the public schools are basically babysitting centers. Okay, what they really want is these kids to go back to school so the parents can go back to work. It's really what they want.
Yep, it's not just the Republicans either; it's the Democrats now too.
And basically, if you do democratize learning and actually have kids at home with their own curriculum, you have the opportunities to actually democratize learning. In other words, you don't have to sit up there and brainwash kids anymore. You can actually say, if you're Black, you can learn whatever you want to learn, as long as they learn how to do math and read and write, which is basically all you need to get into college. You don't need much more than that, If you know how to read and write and you can do calculus, you can get into any college on the planet. Okay. You don't need much more than that, right? So, but all the other stuff is brainwashing. What history do you want them to learn? What kind of focus you want? It doesn't have to be Eurocentric. It can be Afrocentric, right? Whatever centric you want. So basically, there's, like I said, there's, and I'm gonna get back to let Nicole have her restraint back. Okay. The three things that the Prussian school system was set up to do. Okay. First one is to babysit. Okay. Second is brainwash, right? The third is to educate, right? The first two can't be done if the kids at home online learning what the fuck they want to learn. And I'm done.
So that's basically the trade-off between liberalism and authoritarianism. Is you having that push, you having that pushback of, well, basically what BGS said in a nutshell, just giving you like bullshit excuses in regards to why they can't do it. But the trade-off in that is you have a way or a method to actually combat said pushback by appealing to the government. But you know, overall, I do hear and feel what you're saying about that, which I mean that's our environment in a nutshell, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, it tells you, it actually informs you how much they are like committed to keeping it at the Prussian school system, that they're willing to put kids' health and life at jeopardy for the sake of, you know, keeping, you know, making sure that brainwashing and that socialization piece keeps getting reinforced.
You gotta sacrifice some pinkies.
Right. You gotta sacrifice
the pinkies. Okay.
Because there's an economic incentive behind it. There's economic backing behind it. So this is why we're in the situation that we're in. And you know, I think that's the beauty. When I say beauty in regards to like trade-offs, like the messed up part is you seeing the other side taking advantage of the system, but we do have a way to combat it. It's just about, you know, we're just a little bit behind the eight ball because obviously they're the ones who's holding most of the cards and we're able to pull certain strings. But, you know, we have ways and workarounds to get to it.
Because we always think about that from the little guy standpoint about the democratization of the internet and social media and that kind of stuff. But we never think about it from the managerial aspect. Okay, if we do that, then they can go anywhere. Then how do we actually guide people to do whatever we think that we've planned for them to do? It becomes much more difficult.
Yeah, they need to keep the 85 to 85, Mike. You trying to remove numbers, man. They need to keep them 85.
And Mike, you asked about 92 octane.
Yeah, I caught that. The 92 mice.
There might not be 92 mice. That might be 85 mice.
Very well.
Strag mice? Wow.
Yeah.
No, but
yeah, what did you 92 octane mice? Did I say something that?
No. Mike V did that. Why he mentioned that? About the dominant mouse.
Yeah,
the alpha mouse.
Talking about the alpha mouse, and the female mice that would choose one or the over the other. One has more masculine energy or something like that.
Yeah. Usually that's the one that would step forward. You know, not to step forward to get her because, like, to be honest, the females don't have as much value in that environment. But because they're so plentiful, because a female will usually have more females pups than male pups. And but the male that usually steps forth, like, to defend the family, defend the group or something, that's the alpha. And I just happen to notice that, because usually I'm the one getting bit by the alpha. That the others, they just like cower and run away or something, but he's like, I'm standing my ground, you know. And you can tell he has a little pride in himself. Like, man, get your ass out of here. Like, you know.
Yeah, that's something actually you wanted to read it and do it because you work with mice all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff that there's a lot of stuff that he wrote you would actually understand because I've seen that. Yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Right.
So where I'm reading it dry because I've never worked with mice, I said who better to do this than you, because you actually can understand what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, the nine. I mean, there is a. I hadn't even thought about that. The octane scale with the with the.
With the mice.
Social economic. I got my pellets. All right, these
Wow.
my ones.
It's mine over here. I got your pellets right here. Huh?
Yeah.
I'm by the machine. Come on, step on my baby. What you want? What you want? Huh?
Give him that mice game.
Yeah, I see.
Over there pushing that decon.
Yeah.
Mhm. So what?
Also,
Yeah.
in terms of how their civilization that was just constructed, how it goes into that. I hadn't thought of that, but it is true. Like there are beta mice. Believe it or not, most of the time it is believable because it happens in human interactions that the alpha that he gets ganged up on. And I just thought it was important to say, like, or funny to say, because it's like, I'm high value. Nah, you ain't high value. I'm high value male. You know,
And
I know he's not, because one is genetically. I've made one of them. He's tagged. He's genetically weaker. He might have a collar, and so I know he's genetically weaker. And then I know that the other one is genetically stronger. You know, he's expected to do certain things. So when they get in there, the one that's weaker, he still has the male components. Like, you know, even though I'm weak, I'm not gonna let you see I'm weak. You know, I'm gonna try to be strong. You know, the appearance of being strong. I think that's interesting. You know, like I am genetically weak, but you know, I'm still gonna fight. You know, to the end.
You ain't gonna punk me, huh?
No, you ain't gonna punk me out. Sometimes I get punked out. You know, get knocked out and stuff, and I'm like, well, next time. You know, try next time.
He said he's gonna alpha his way through it.
Try.
His way through it.
Yeah, I may be genetically weaker, but we gonna make this work.
I ain't your beta bitch today. All right.
Yeah.
I'm male, but when I have one strong mouse, physically strong, genetically strong, one that's physically weak, genetically weak, and I have them, and I put a female in there, they're still gonna fight. You know, at the same intensity as they would if one of them didn't have an issue. He would still try to fight.
I didn't know they were that ruthless with each other.
He's like wheezing, trying to get to her and fighting and stuff. And I'm like, dude, give it up. Like you're done. You know, we're just, you know, you're done. Okay, you're dead. All right. You know, gave you a chance. Those types of experiments are hard to do because you kind of already know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's not fair, but we have to do it anyway. It's you know, we do the experiments now where we don't necessarily need mice, where we've been putting the one of my friends does it where they have the surgery, the brain surgery, and they put the module on the head, you know, right on the brain, and do the neurological biostatistics, like where they can see the image of the mouse on the screen, the computer screen. I forget the name of the program that they developed, but they can see that simulation occur on the screen, and they don't need mice to do that anymore because mice are very expensive and hard to keep up with sometimes because sometimes they get lost. So yeah, they
get lost. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes they figure out how to get out. We have a cage or something. We put them in. We purposely want them to try to get. Yeah, they'll get out. You know, ones that are more, they have adapted to the environment. They're older, you know, BGS type of mice, and they're like, you know, I can get out of here, and they always are the ones that get out. They don't go to a bigger cage, but they think
got Caesar mice running around.
We have elder mice, you know. That
you got some black pill mice in there telling them about the environment.
I think so. I
didn't. My reference from Planet of the Apes.
Probably are. What'd you say, AB?
I said Caesar reference from Planet. What was that? Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Caesar. The monkey Caesar. He escaped the cage and went back.
Oh yeah.
And see, they think they're going somewhere, and I wouldn't say like it's like a bad thing to be thinking like, oh yes, he's not gonna make it. Let's see how far he goes. No, I'm trying to see who's gonna follow him. You know, who's gonna follow this alpha male who's an older mouse? Who's gonna follow him into the into the afterlife, into the better life or something. We're going to our fantasy world. It ain't no fantasy world. It's just a bigger cage. They don't, but more food and more women, but it's just a bigger cage. And so I'm like, okay, he's going through the tunnel. Okay, watching him. There he goes. There he goes. And then his friends are like, man, where'd Larry go? Oh, he's left. Okay, let's go. Some of them don't go after Larry. Some of them don't go after BGS. And he ain't high value. I'm staying where I'm at. And then in there with them, and they stuck. Okay. So those types of experiments, it's like you had a chance to leave and you didn't leave, and now the door's shut and you're stuck. You should have left. Now you're stuck. And so the others that are going, and these are genetically altered mice to have better sensory analysis of their environment, and they can't even, they failed. These two, they just their sensory perception was off. They couldn't smell the feline coming into the cage, like being lowered in. They're just looking around like arguing or whatever, instead of trying to get out.
Wow.
When I watch it, I'm like, these are some niggas. Like,
there's so many analogies that I can tie back to what you just expressed, Nicole. I'm just like, it's like get right or get left. Nah, I'm gonna stay in my place. You tripping? You don't know what you talking about.
You're waiting for the reparations.
Waiting for
Yep.
COVID-19 don't exist.
I'm like,
COVID. Go ahead.
No, I'm like, y'all should have left, man. Y'all should have just went. And this is not like, oh, I put them in there, and then Elder Mouse left 5 minutes later, and they're still sitting there and they don't know what to do. No, this is like hours and hours and hours of stuff like going on, and they just chilling. They still back and forth arguing, and you can tell they're arguing, like they're mad. They're getting in each other's face, rolling around, fighting and stuff. I'm like, here comes, and I'm literally with my hands with a cat. It's a kitten, but it's a feline. And I'm lowering the kitten down, 2 feet above, 1 foot above, 6 inches above. And the little legs are coming closer and closer. And they're just like, and
these are literally Negro mice.
Yeah, they're going back. And I'm like, y'all Negroes gonna get killed. And I'm gonna watch. And I'm sitting here like, okay. I just let it go. I just let the little kitten fall in there. The kitten knows exactly what to do. Then they looking like, oh shit. As soon as the cat drops in there, they try to run up the side of the wall.
Okay.
But there's a hole right there that they could have gone through. They try to run the wall instead of going, and the cat's not near the hole.
Okay.
The hole is closed.
Oh, wow.
But they don't even try to go that way. They just go sporadic and just spontaneous activity and behavior is crazy. And so there are times where some kittens aren't able to, they have a transponder on their head, so they are not able to respond. Maybe they've had surgery where their eyes have been removed. They have to go by smell. So sometimes they move slower. And so there are times where the mice don't get eaten or killed because I picked the kitten back up again. But and you would think that they would be saying, oh, thank you, Jesus. Oh, thank you. Oh, Lord. Like they would be so happy or so thankful of this hand that's come, this God, this hand that keeps coming in here. Right. No, they go right back to arguing.
Oh, dear.
They need their panels.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the parallels are eerie.
Man.
Yeah, that's scary. That's scary. Yeah, that's scary.
He said they were. I'm like, man, they need their panels to, debate it out whether or not white supremacy exists. You don't see this hand come? Nah, that's just that's
It's about women in game.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, oh God.
Because I got white gloves on, and
the hand of God, huh?
Yes, thank you, and I give every day, and give them water, and the smile in the sun, that's the laboratory, fool. Like ain't no sun, smiling in the sun, and no, that's my head in front of the light, fool. Like, meanwhile, the older mouse is over there chilling with more than one older mouse, but he's over there chilling, drinking a daiquiri or something, margarita, you know, Jose Cuervo, all the women, you know, he's like, I got all the women, you know, just chilling. The younger ones they didn't accept the wisdom. That's what I thought. You know, they didn't accept, because they were run through trials with the older mice. And they didn't pay attention. They didn't watch. And we knew they weren't going to watch. So all of these things, I see they live in the chat. What's going on? Thank you, Mike, for coming up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the parallels are very hard to digest when you see it. So when I see things, and that could be why I'm part allowing maybe going towards like black pill, but I don't know. You know, it's just what I see.
Yeah, like I said, it's the thing is you're taught to be objective. So so in other words, a lot of people, you know, that come into space, they're not taught to believe what they see. Like and you know, if you're a STEM, any kind of STEM, the result is the result. If you run it enough times, guess what? The result is the result. No matter what you thought was on the paper, what your calculations were, basically, like Feynman said, if it doesn't agree with the results, then it's wrong. Okay. I don't care what you do. You can have this best theory in the world. The thing is, if you run the experiment enough time, it always comes back the same way. It's opposite of your data. Guess what?
Right.
You're wrong.
It's wrong, right? And that happens more than you think. Maybe about
it does.
90% of the time, you got it. It's wrong. Like, okay, you need to go back and rethink your hypothesis. You need to rework this.
Yep.
You know, look at some previous work and now analyze that. And now look how they did their analysis. And you know, your hypothesis is wrong, man. Like, I've been there. You know, about to be in tears because I ran like all these experiments, and it's Friday night. Like, man, is it wrong? Is it wrong? And it's like, it's not the methods, it's not the analysis, it's not the study design or anything. It's your hypothesis. And like, no scientist wants to admit their hypothesis is wrong. Like, they know, they were like, man, but I you know, because that's questioning your ability to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
You know, you're subject to people not trusting you on designing experiments and coming up with new concepts, because it has to be the original concept. You know, every single time have an original concept.
Yep. That's why when people get mad, because they have an emotional reaction to data. Okay. And that's why even when I present something, okay, people know I've looked at, you know, I didn't just look at one source and accept it. I checked at least, you know, I checked at least 5 or 6 sources to see if it collaborates to the same thing. That's like when people kind of wary when they disagree. I said, okay, and then I said, go ahead, or if I'm wrong, go prove it. They already know. Okay, I know he's done some work. Like even with the baby mama thing, I've been kicking around that idea that hypothesis, man, for like 2 years, right? And I've been following the not only the out of wedlock rate, but also the GDP, and also how they were family formations and stuff like that, and also the fertility rate. So I've been following this stuff for like 10, 12 years. So so when I finally come out and say something, I'm not just saying it because that's what I believe, I want to believe. I'm saying it because that's what the data says.
Yeah, and I think that Nicole, I'm glad that you shared that in regards to the perception when basically hypotheses don't go a particular way, like it's tied to your credibility within your field. I think that at least on the public sphere, when people do have these emotional outbursts or just conflicts between what the actual data is, it's tied to them thinking that they're basically inadequate, or like they're incompetent, and as soon as you quote unquote prove them wrong, or the data proves them wrong, it basically shoots them down and makes them feel like, and I say feel like they're not worth nothing, and it attacks their ego, which is really what most of these conversations get based upon. It gets lost and it gets moved from data to actual ego.
Yeah.
Which is why
they can stimulate the outcomes.
I'll just put in an example. if you can reduce muscle formation, or you can change the window of opportunity where muscles need to develop and get stronger and stronger, and yeah, you can prevent a successful fight. Also, changing bone density, you can do that as well.
Really? Okay.
Mhm.
Hey, yo, what's going on?
Hey, what's going
What's
on,
going on,
Michael?
Mike?
Hey, Mike.
I got two quick questions from my girl Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
First question: have you seen a mice that's trying to escape to Colombia and go sit his ass down somewhere?
Wow.
And if so, how that nigga do it?
Oh my god.
SYSBM for real. Save
I'm just
yourself,
waiting.
Black Mike.
I'm waiting for
Oh,
the world. I'm
man.
waiting for the world to come burn. So let me just go sit down in South America while it does.
That's the mouse that got out the cage. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and study that one.
Yeah. What's the second question?
Mike, I missed it.
Huh? What?
What'd you say? I missed something.
Oh, he said, in your observation, have you seen a mouse jump out the cage and escape to Colombia?
What? No.
SYSBM, Nicole. Save yourself, Black Mike.
I'm out.
Yeah, but the equivalent would be them escaping the environment, which is what she said. The clever ones will actually get out of the cage.
Yeah, I figured.
My arm and climb on. I didn't have my hairnet on properly. He crawled all over the hairnet. I was like, oh my god! Just took it off, and he crawled up my arm and went up to the hairnet and got caught in the hairnet and dragged that thing down my back. He was gone out the door. I was like, oh my god! I had to get after him. He was gone. He went down the hall. I just saw a little hairnet bouncing down the hallway.
Wow.
Colombia, DR, Democratic Republic of here I come, the DR.
No.
I'm
Now my
free.
second question.
Free.
My second question is a little bit more poignant, and I think the Mouse Utopia experiment is something. I guess same with Nicole. Once I started looking at that, that's what kind of helped me probably start going down that black pill route too. You know what I mean? But one of the things that Dr. Calhoun did mention, he said he fixed it. And he said one of the 3 ways he fixed it, the Utopia, because he did run additional experiments after the big one that he did. But he said the way he fixed it was introducing compassion, creativity, and I can't remember what the third one was. Maybe innovation or something like that. So I was wanting to see if Nicole had seen that possible, those aspects. If you do introduce that to those mice, does that environment get a little better, or do the mice kind of go back to being normal? Because to me personally, I think the relationship between humans and mice is so close, and love and compassion is pretty much the only thing that's kind of helping us out, in my opinion.
I haven't seen that, but there are sure behavioral studies on that, because my work is genetic based, and sometimes there's a behavioral component to that. But primary objective is changing the genetics, because structure usually correlates with function. Change genetic structure, you get a different function. You know, and sometimes it's behavioral, and we use them as like source mice. So we're changing them genetically to then copy that genetic change in the embryo level if it has some good effect. But as far as like innovation or love or creativity, we haven't. Like, I do know that the female mice, we know they're not in the mouse utopia because the female mice actually will fight you for their babies. And the mouse utopia, they don't really do that as much. Like they just kind of like whatever. They kind of over time lost that connection.
Right.
Happened, and then the physical death happened. But I haven't seen that. But yeah, he did talk about that. I was trying to focus more on because you're going too far, as usual, Mr. Coleman.
you know I'm dyslexic. I'm dyslexic, so I start at the end and go backwards.
Yeah. Right.
But now But I wanted to ask that because I was looking at what you said before in terms of, because I'm seeing it in the females now, right? All the females are saying, "What can you do for me?" And so I had a conversation with a lady, and I said, "You do realize that love is supposed to be putting the other person's best interest ahead of them, right?" So if it's in the Mouse Utopia experiment, I'm just seeing selfishness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the social contract is being ripped apart, and everybody thinks it's getting renegotiated, but I don't know if it's being renegotiated. I hope, but granted, we're not mice, but at the same time, we're eerily similar.
Yes.
Eerily is an understatement, but go ahead.
But no, I just wanted to hop on and ask about that Colombian mouse. That's all. That's all I want.
There's your Dr. Dunbar. Your Dr. Dunbar.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
It was going
Hey,
on.
what's going on, Doc?
Hey, well, I just want to say I can corroborate everything Nicole said about those mice. When I was a postdoc, I was in a lab full of Chinese scientists, and one of them said, we called him the lieutenant. He was second in charge. He said, keep the male mice separate because they will fight to the death. And I did witness that a couple of times. That it's almost like they were using kung fu. They were in there hopping around, and snipping at each other, and yeah, it was. I never seen anything like it. And very agile, very acrobatic. They're in there climbing upside down on the cage.
Yeah.
And here's another thing: Nicole's probably, she's done some dissection before. I've done some dissection. They have pretty much all the same organs that we do.
Yep.
Really?
Same
Yes.
organ. Everything's the same. Their
lungs, heart, stomach, kidneys, all of it.
They don't they even have like similar phalanges, like hands and toes and stuff like that? Is similar?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the similar phalange. They have of course, they're very, very small. Everything's so small, and they have nails. They will do their little, what is the fighting stance, the windmill. They try to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like, just go at you,
Nicole,
and they fight and climb. Yeah.
Look, I'm a believer, right? Y'all know my religious stance. But if you telling me I'm just a rat in God's heavenly kingdom, I'm gonna come get you. I'm gonna come get you, girl.
For understanding, your God of understanding for that one.
Well, even going down to the protein level, many of our proteins are very similar.
That's why you guys use them for experimentation, because they are so similar.
Some things we can't, like I'm working with some genes right now. I have to do a panel of 14 genes. One set is 9 genes, the other set is 5, and so I have to do that. Well, 16 with the loading control. So I have to do that, and the human and mouse versions of these genes, they don't match up. So I have to figure something out. I was working on that earlier this morning before West Coast emailed me.
Quick question is for Dr. Dunbar and both of y'all. Is there another animal species that's as social as humans and mice?
Rats, hamsters, rabbits to a certain degree. I'm thinking of ones that are cheap. Primates are, of course, but they're so expensive. We stick to the mice. Rats are way bigger. They're like 4 or 5 times bigger than a mouse. They're much bigger. Hamsters really big, but they're most of the mammals that we use for these model system studies. Yeah, they're very social. If you put them in an environment where they can't socialize, they have very similar symptoms of like depression. They have those kinds of issues and stuff like we would have.
That's what I'm looking at now in terms of and BGS knows I brought this up when COVID-19 hit, was the mental health of your healthcare workers, right? You're gonna break them. At the end of the day, you're gonna, because we are social creatures, and you can't just keep them doing the one task, even though it's an important task. You're gonna break them, and then now they're starting to say mental 40% of Americans are having signs and mental health issues and behavioral issues. So I think like we're up 11% on suicides.
Yeah.
Ideation.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
it's going to get worse once this whole thing, because you mean at the end of the day, like B just said, once you come to realize that you've lost your home, you've lost your wealth, and then there is no ability for you to get it back in terms of like getting a job, that's when despair kicks in. And so once that happens, then it's it's downhill after that.
Yeah, so you're gonna have you have a big rise.
Doctor,
go ahead.
I was gonna ask Dr. Dunbar a question. If he's
go for it.
Do you know anything about this new saliva test they're talking about for COVID?
You know what? I have to do some research on that.
Okay.
Me and BGS, we've been talking about the football. I just saw an article that said that if it proves to be a game changer, the Big Ten should consider opening things back up. But I think the advantage is that it'd be very fast.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought I would ask because they were talking about it's supposed to be a real big deal. Like, well, let me go ask my experts. They would know better than I would.
Well, they need something cheaper and quicker and more accurate, because it's to test 330 million people is expensive and time consuming. So they need something.
Yes, it is.
With the test that they have out now, it's too slow. It's too expensive and it's too slow. So they're going to have to streamline it. So they're going to keep trying until they get it right. Got to remember, this is, people think science works at internet time, but it doesn't. It's slow, painfully slow. So by the time you see a breakthrough, it could have started like 30 years ago. So it's to expect to actually get something, a gold standard that's cheap and effective out within less than a year, man. You're talking about almost like going to Mars, man.
Wow.
Even though there's a lot of people, like millions of people working on it at the same time, but the thing is still, breakthroughs come with a lot of mistakes. If you've ever been in the lab, man, you might do 10,000 experiments and you get depressed, and then on 10,001 you change something and all of a sudden it works. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Shout out to the 85%.
I should have never put that up, man. They still arguing over that. I thought it was pretty. I think something is pretty obvious.
For a 5%er, I agree. I agree. As a watcher, yes, it does make sense. But
I think it's pretty obvious. But I'm talking with Dr. Johnson, and he's been chastising me. He said, because it's obvious to you doesn't mean it's obvious to everybody else.
Right.
And I said, I've been around my eggheads too long, because I know they're going to get it the first time, or at least the second time, right? And I said, but it doesn't always work that way for everybody.
I didn't see anything wrong with that video.
Some people did. They went left. Left to the point they went all the way to Mars.
Can't win with Negroes. I know.
Yeah.
You said get right or get left. They got left.
Well, left. Yeah.
Left.
And I had to remember that.
But BGS, I think a lot of guys actually want to be something that they're not. The first step is recognizing what you are, right? Most people in the space are still followers. And one of the ways you can tell that is, when you start probing their depth of reading, right? Yeah. Their depth of seeking out knowledge. Yeah. That's your first step. If you're not cracking 2-3 books a week, man, you're not a 5%er, because you should be gaining knowledge. That's one of the characteristics that I've noticed about 5%. There's a search for knowledge and understanding. So most people just want to be right on the top. Or win a debate or something like that. So, and
the biggest thing, people think that I just wake up, roll out of bed, and do this. No, it took a long time to build the base. Right. The base of that pyramid. Now, when I pick up an article or I talk to Dr. Anwar, or I talk to Nicole, I have a base. So I can actually understand what they're talking about, because I have a base of knowledge already. Okay. Some people think that you can just understand this stuff. It don't work that way, Chief.
Well, that's why I would consider myself part of the 85%, right? Which is, the only difference is I'm a self-aware 85%. Okay. Now I get to pick and choose who I want to follow. You follow me? So and then hopefully in the future I can become, when I grow up like BGS, I can be somebody who has that ability to do so. I just think a lot of people want something. Yeah, I think people want something so bad that they actually, I remember you saying this about the black pill, that a lot of you guys want this so bad, but you really have no idea what you're asking for.
Yeah,
So
and Nicole just looked at the business and said, "Nope, not ready today."
What?
Well, Nicole, listen, he sent me my application. I just keep sending it back to Cinder.
Well, hey,
in other words, you
if
said
you're
you're not
gonna,
ready for the black pill yet. That was saying.
But
Yeah, I'm not ready for it. I'm not.
Yeah.
well, hey,
Me
if you're gonna
neither.
be
Me neither.
if you're gonna be BGS, I think you better have a lot of patience and you better be willing to take the fire, the incoming.
Well, I think for me, when it comes to BGS, I think my admiration for him comes in not because he takes the black pill. I've seen other men and women take it. The thing is that he still has love and compassion for people, and I think that is something where if I can't have that at the forefront of my lens, viewing the world, then I don't want to take the black pill. And so that's a hard distinction because so many men and women fall off after they take it. Once you see it, you see it. There's no going back after that. So that's the reason why I'm always, I tell you before, I'm always tipping my hat to you because you don't have to come back and do this shit. At the end of the day, if you wanted to, you can go off fucking be a fat cat down in Columbia living my dream. You know what I mean? So
there's nothing wrong with that.
I know it ain't.
I don't know that you all have to tell me, but everybody watching and everybody who watches afterwards. Oh, first of all, I want to say thank you to MLR for the Cash App. Thank you very much for that. And anyone in the super chat, anyone who cash at me later, thank you very much. I appreciate it so much. But I don't really know, if I am sliding into black pill or not. All I know is I know how I think, and I know that I know how other people think. And during this whole coronavirus, when everything started to really pick up a lot of speed, like we looked at each other and we were like, the hell? Like, I know that we sit here, in the living room watching how people acting, the toilet paper gate and everything going on. I was like, I kind of felt like, okay, I might be black pill based on, or slide into that. I'll say sliding into that arena because he said something like, he's like, some people ain't gonna make it. Like, he was just like, they're not gonna make it. And first he said some people are not gonna make it, and then he went and got a beer and came back and sat down. He was like, they're not gonna make it. Like, he just like, I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, just in general, they're not gonna make it. And in my mind, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, they're not gonna make it. I was like, my nigga, like, yes. I was just like, yes. No, you kind of know that when you have, you should know that, ladies, when you're with somebody, he was like, some people aren't built for this. They're not built for this type of stress, because he was elaborating on what he was saying. He was like, they're not built for this type of environment. And he said stuff is going to change really fast. And I hope that they can, they can figure out what they need to do. But some people are not going to be able to figure it out fast enough.
Yeah. The thing is the speed. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you give them enough time, they can adapt. The thing is that, and normally with an environment, the environment changes slowly enough to where people can slowly adapt to it. Okay. But in this headed toward a singularity, people just are going to fall by the wayside because it's going to change. I was talking to my mentor here in Los Angeles, right? And she called me and she said, we need to do a show on 5G because, this, that, and the other. I said, we can do a show about it. But the thing is that it's not going to change anything. It's because that decision has been made way, way, way above our pay grade. And it's not just here, it's worldwide. So if you think you're going to change it, I think the only thing you can do is move out of away from it, move to a remote area that's away from it.
But I think that's also listening to Nicole and what that's the reason why most people. I'll give y'all a tip on what I've been researching. My main two things that I've been watching is the Mount Utopia experiment and the Great Depression history. Right. Typically, what is human? Not where can I go per se, but almost what is human behavior in that moment in time. Right. So those are, because when I look at this thing, I'm like, okay, cool, we're just at the end of a civilization. I can accept that this thing is crashing. Let me go ahead and start slowly walking towards my escape shuttle without letting everybody know. You know what I mean? So that's my thing of just watching and seeing where I can land my feet. And then also, I think, like I said before, I keep always bringing up this video that B just did about maybe a year and a half ago called Sophie's Choice.
Okay.
I will always bring this up. Which child are you going to pick to take with you? Because you can't take everybody, meaning you can't take everybody with you. And so have you made a decision on which one you're going to take with you or which one you're going to leave behind? And so because this environment is tearing up, because the critters in the environment will get more violent as this thing goes on and more desperate, the places of safety will strengthen, right? What camp or enclave or tribe can I solidify myself in, right, to be somewhat safe, right? These are things that cross my mind as opposed to trying to understand why the car is crashing. I don't give a shit. It's crashing. My job is at least try to put my feet somewhere at least 3 years from now, where will I be at?
Especially, the thing is that, instead of slowing, applying the brakes, they're stepping on the accelerator. And that's the only problem.
That's what I said.
So it's if that's how come those billionaires in tech are getting more money, because they're pushing more money into tech, because guess what? They're getting ready to replace you faster. That's the whole thing about remote. So New York has like 18,000 empty apartments because people are moving out of the city. They're doing their stuff remotely. They don't have to live there. So this is just a,
Well, you knew the project that I was working on, and and I told you how my business partner ended up meeting a top attorney at IBM, and he's like, "Yeah, it's all built. It's done. It just needs to be passed. Like that's There just needs to be something to happen for it to kind of go through, and this is it. No one was expecting it, but
What Dr. Dunbar, and I'm sure Nicole sees this stuff every day.
Agreed.
It's just a matter of whether it's feasible to deploy it or not, and that's the whole thing. And sometimes it's a economic question, and sometimes it's a moral question.
Well, I think to me, it's more of an economic, because at the end of the day, Officer Charles brought up some stuff about helping out, Black boys in the community in Baltimore. Well, I think part of it, and I'm saying he doesn't know, because I'm sure he does know, but they make money off them dudes, and they like the way they make money off the dudes. It's already established how they make money off those dudes. So introducing a newer product and a better product is actually a threat to the way they're making money. Right. Unless it's a super faster way for you to make money. So that's why I look at this going forward, is that they need to figure out how they're going to make money. Because when you look at these statistics for business and why they sell certain things to certain groups and market to certain groups the way that they market, they know how to make money off of them, man.
What if you introduce Darwinism into a technological revolution? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, that's
exactly what you're seeing, because this is literally Darwinism. The ones that are nimble and can adapt will survive, and the ones that can't, guess what they're going to do? As far as business is concerned, they're going to die off.
And so that's why that's the reason why I always refer back to this video game that I like to play. It's called Warhammer 40K, but the lore is really deep. So part of the lore talks about the dark age of technology, and it's just where everybody said, fuck it, I'm going to adapt and pretty much go into a cyborg mode, right? Anything that would make me a better, more advanced human being, I'm going to do that. And it came at a cost, but it was one, like you said before, it's that Darwinism, which is I'm not dying, so if I got to put a chip in my head and I've got to replace my arm to do something, I'll do that.
Or what would I do? What kind of technology would I put into my child to make sure that he can actually survive in the coming environment? Would you do it?
That's what I asked on one of the videos that you reposted. Thank you, BGS. Was asking, would you design a baby? Would you have a designer baby yourself? And I never answered the question,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just saying, like, that was the question at that time for that week for me was, all these articles about designer babies, designing a child that, I mean, they had the little BS on the websites, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Eye color, skin color, hair texture, hair color, all that little silly, stuff. But it was really more about on the regenerative medicine side
Mm-hmm.
and the like the genetic alteration side of it, of the embryos was, okay, we can alter embryos of mice. We can also alter embryos of humans. So it would be more like intelligence. I like that show, Hannah. The show Hannah, even though I couldn't stand some of the themes in that show.
Mm-hmm.
The actor that played in the show Altered Carbon plays as dad on Hannah, and she's genetically altered to be stronger, just think very, very quickly, less susceptible to diseases. And if she is injured, she recovers fast, all those types of things. She can withstand very low temperatures, very high temperatures. She does not get dehydrated as fast. Those types of genetic alterations.
She's a super soldier.
Super soldiers that they are in this laboratory. I think it was in Romania on the show. And there were a whole crop of these females. They were using them for the CIA to super soldiers, just teenage soldiers, basically. Assassins. That's what they were training them from birth all the way up. So they ate certain things, train them from birth to like 16 years old. Then they released them into the wild. The commercialization of that product, because that's what they were called, of that product was not discussed on the show. But if you use your imagination and you've seen how genetic alteration can affect function, you think, well, dang, if countries decided we're going to buy 5 of these girls, you don't think, I'm just saying, imagine, this is all imagination. This ain't no concept. It's a show. So everybody listen out there, it ain't real. Just a show.
Yet.
Nameless. That's what I'm getting. But
well, I would say I'll answer your question for you, Nicole. I'll answer your question for you. And y'all know I work with little kids with special needs. My little buddy right now, he's got autism. And yes, wow. you would take that genetic strain out of him. Yes, you would want your child to be as normal, as humanly as possible. When these babies come out, I just got a call today about working with another baby. He just came out and he's on he's got a trachea event. Oh, that ain't nothing but a cyborg right there. All right. The only difference is it looks clunky. Once they get that looking better and put that artificial shell over the human body, he can get up and be normal. You know what I mean? So
he'd be Darth Vader. Huh?
He'd be Darth Vader, right? So when I hear people say, I'll never do this and I never do this to my child, that's bullshit. I've seen too many parents have to make that hard decision when their child's life is on the line. And so now it's not just immediate life. Now it's their entire life is on the line. Do you want this child to be behind and not be able to compete with this dude who just has the ability to just run longer, or he's stronger physically, and his ability to interact with those children? If he gets hit by one of them, guess what? He's probably going to get really hurt. So now you have to just modify your kid just to be on the defensive and protective side.
Slows down the development and the socialization process. Everything gets slowed down.
And the question being, do you want your child to survive in the environment that they're going to be existing in? It becomes less of a question of what you want to do to them versus the survivability rate and what what the ultimate outcome is that you want for
West Coast. Of course you're right. You want to know why you're right? You want to know why you're right? Because I got niggas now talking about the baby boomers ain't leave us nothing. They didn't give us shit.
Oh gosh.
See,
right? Well, hey, so you'll have a generation of children complaining about Gen Zs who didn't give them any modifications. They didn't give us any modifications. they didn't give us any genetic alterations.
Hey, you know what? You know what? Shout out to the next generation that's gonna hate on this, because you know what? They're gonna blame. They're gonna blame. They gonna blame us for COVID. They gonna blame us for the economy. Like something that popped up in my mind. Something that popped up in my mind, right, is as far as like the next generation of the children that are being born that are contracting COVID. What is their survivability rate gonna look like?
That's what I was kind of like hoping somebody would catch on that, because you had all those children. I mean, even now, more and more children. It's in the brain. It can be in the brain and the testes. So that we know. And so, of course, it can be in semen. It can be in children. And so as far as survivability, it will depend on the strain, of course. But you have to develop different technologies to take care of newborns with this infection. And the issue is not really the infant. I know it sounds morbid, but not really just the infants or newborns with the infection, but how bad is the infection in utero? Because you have basically pneumonia in a bag. You're in a sac, you're in a placenta, in the womb with pneumonia. How do you detect how bad it is, what the severity is, if a woman is not far along enough to deliver, the baby preterm? You risk her life, you risk the child's life. So all of those questions are coming forward now. And it, from what I've heard people talk about in meetings is, well, what about that artificial womb? They've talked about that. Hey, what about the artificial womb thing? Because if the strains keep mutating and changing, and a mutation doesn't always go to gain of function. A mutation can be a latent mutation where, there's not much of a change in the severity of the infection, but it lasts longer. So you don't have as many symptoms, but the infection lasts like 2-3 weeks or something. So you don't have to be on a ventilator, but you got a few symptoms here and there, and you can easily transmit it, right? So you might have mutation number 12 out of 50. Who knows by the time we get to the end of the year. So all of that goes into like developing better technology. And people, like I said, people who are not ready. I don't think that people like saying that. It's just the people have problems with you admitting the truth, admitting what's there.
Yeah.
Like saying what?
Huh?
Like saying what? People don't like you saying.
Oh, like a lot of people are not going to make it. Like I've had to come to that conclusion myself with like what West Coast is asking with the babies. A lot of those babies, they're not going to make it, or if they are able to be born and delivered properly, they're already starting out behind physically and possibly mentally due to lack of oxygen, many other issues.
Okay.
The
well, I think
too.
Well, on that note, I want to ask this question, and I'm going to jump off.
Okay.
What's the textbook definition of the black pill, if there is one?
I'm sliding. Okay, I'm
There really is no
BGS.
There really is no textbook definition of the black pill.
What's the BGS definition?
Basically, the black pill is basically looking at the world logically without morals. In other words, morals do not exist. And morals. Well, if you're utilitarian, morals, God, whatever it is all a human construction. Okay, family, things like family and the laws that you put together. Okay, utilitarian will say we're constructing this for this reason. Okay, for this outcome.
Yeah,
and a nihilist will say, basically what I'm gonna have a good time. I don't care because this isn't real. So anything I do is not really morals or anything like that is not real either. So I'm going to do what I want. So in other words, it doesn't matter. Do what thou wilt. And utilitarians will say, okay, it does matter. Everything matters, and the end justifies the means. So they're willing to do things or sacrifice people or whatever for the greater, what's called like Thanos, the greater good.
Okay.
You hear that? Always hear the utilitarians say that all the time. We're doing this for the greater good. We're going to sacrifice. So many people have to die. in a code with COVID vaccines, those are acceptable losses, but we're doing this for the greater good. That's utilitarian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then nihilist is the opposite. You know, as long as I don't die and I'm good, I don't care about anybody else.
Right.
Those are two sides.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably
Interesting.
because I'm like, always questioning, what is your purpose? What is your usage?
Mhm.
What are you doing? I always say structure correlates with function, but my main focus of all my projects is the function. I don't care as much about structure because I have biostatisticians that do all that work. They sit and look at code all day. Like they literally are like in a dark room and then they make they're such assholes. Then they make the screen black with all the code green, so it looks like they literally looking at the matrix.
No, that's old. That's old. The green and black comes from the old school monitors. They were
Yeah,
black.
they like that. Even they have these huge monitors, and they're
Mhm.
just sitting in this room, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, why you got that on? What are you doing? And
Yeah.
they're talking about code, and they can see they highlight different
Mhm.
mutations or whatever I want them to look at, and they
Mhm.
find things and model what an organ would look like with this mutation or something,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
print your 3D printer for me and show me what it looks like. That type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't care about all the code. I want to see what can you do? What can you do for me? Like
Mhm.
So I think I would probably be more utilitarian.
Yeah.
And I have some. I don't think I have any nihilistic tendencies.
It doesn't sound like it.
It's just not.
That would be your president. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. And if you really want to do a black pill experiment like the Kobayashi Maru, right? Which is extremely black pill, especially if you're going to adapt it to say the current situation. The one earlier this year, right? When I said Kobayashi Maru, okay. How many people do you sacrifice for the sake of your economy, which will probably do more harm than the virus itself? So how many people is acceptable for you to lose? Is it 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, 3 million? I've heard people say upwards of like 13, 14 million people is acceptable. So the thing is that that is a true black pill question because every death is on your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true black pill. Whether utilitarian, nihilists probably really don't care. Hey, you need to get this thing up and running. Because the environment's all, the economy's all screwed up. Well, how many little kids going to school do we lose? 10%? Okay, it's acceptable. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I went off. That's why I went off on old buddy. Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's one of our, what Dr. Calhoun talked about is the compassion piece to fix this problem.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some level of compassion for humanity if you're trying to because you can't get through it so isolated, and you can't get it through it. You can't go through this as a tribe. You only can get through this as a group. It's the only way you can make it through these stages of humanity that we're going to go through, as we all have done. Period. And as the technology has gotten a lot faster and a lot better, you can just see how the groups are getting smaller and smaller. So, but you still need a sizable group to get through this transition. Because if not, in the end, it'd be like that. What's that movie where there was no women on it? Is it Gattaca? Not Gattaca.
Not Gattaca. No, it wasn't Gattaca. There's no women?
Yeah, there was no women. It was just dudes there. Or
no.
That I don't know. I don't remember that one.
I don't know.
It might have been.
I don't know.
It was basically about some alien species that came down, and basically the way they had children was through asexual. It's like some premise of the future. I can't remember the name of it. I'll try to find it.
That sounds like some Twilight Zone stuff.
Hey, everyone,
I love Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I do too.
Hey, everyone, good discussion. I'm going to jump down. Talk to you next time.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, it's about time for me too. So
yeah, I'm about to roll out.
What you cooking, babe?
I have not cooked anything yet, and that's what I need to do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I have to think, but yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff there. I just need to think about what to do. But I appreciate y'all being here. I think this is, it's probably talked about again. I think Kendra was saying earlier, that she wanted to talk about this subject or something similar. And I understand where she's coming from,
Yeah.
what she's saying too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you always think the ladies will come up. One day I have some more ladies. I don't know, maybe.
Well, Kendra definitely needs to get up here because her insight in the interaction between men and women is
Yeah.
one of a kind.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So she definitely needs to not feel intimidated by coming up here because her insight on that is because at the end of the day, it is the social piece that actually matters the most, right? Not the technology, not the environment, but the social piece of the group and of these animals and us as well, and how we can kind of hold this shit together. Because, like I said, if not, you know,
technology. There's no need for technology without people.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
So ladies, Kendra, please step up and let us talk.
On there if I can, chill with me and just if not hang in the chat. But I think it'll be good to hear from her on this subject because it's gonna become more of an issue. The tone of voice that you hear in the videos of the women talking about this, the tone of voice is gonna be different in a short while. The sound of desperation is gonna be really loud, and you're gonna be able to tell, like, okay, and you would already know what's coming, but a lot of other people wouldn't. And that's a good thing. That's why I'm saying I'm very appreciative. Much respect to everyone because that comes here that wants to learn, and all of our channels that come, they want to learn because you are basically on the cutting edge, and you never want to be behind the 8 ball. You close to the cutting edge as you possibly can because you'll know what to do. It should shift your behavior. If it doesn't, okay, you took it and did whatever you did with it. But
that's why I asked you about that Colombian mouse. I'm trying to adapt and change on the fly.
He jumped on a bus and like, I'm out.
I know he did.
Most of the time, I'll be honest with you, Michael, most of the time they make it outside and they don't last probably a day.
I know they don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was watching that dude saying they get outside and don't know they don't have the skill set to even be in that environment, which is what's funny to me.
The street rats and stuff probably kill them, and they're gone in less than an hour or two. They're dead by then because they've been in a white environment this whole time, and not white as in color, but like just sterile. And then they get out, and it's like all these landscapes and textures. They don't know what to do. They run back to what they know, which could be experiment in itself, but they run back to what they know and end up getting killed. So it is what it is. But
it sounds like the folks who say that they want to see society crumble.
Or they want to get rid of non-productive people.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, yo, you don't understand the
define
word
non-productive.
Well, it's not even just the problem with the non-productive argument is always, and it always will be. And BGS and Kevin Samuels have been talking about this the last fucking year. When you were in your 20s, you aren't productive. So what you plan on wiping out a whole group of young men?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're going back to the old Goebbels thing about useless eaters with Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about, which is an old term that came from 19th century Germany. What they call useless
Come on, BGS. You know those were original
It's complicated
ideas.
for them to figure out.
Yeah, and I understand
I know.
Peter's point, and that's something that I've looked at, and I was like, my question was, are they, and then I realized, like, reading and listening to the Coliseum streams and a lot of women that have their head on straight, listening to them talk about things, I'm like, no, that everyone has a function. Everyone has a job to do, because I just went back to the basic principles of nature. Nature does not waste its time on producing something. It conserves its energy as much as it can, and if something's produced, it has to have function. I don't care if your function is maybe you think a lowly position, that's your position. So you have a job, and at that point, you may think this is a lowly position, but when the time comes and you're needed in a higher, very productive position, you'll maybe you have developed the skills where you'll know what to do. And people who are making, buku money, they and don't know what the hell to do when they get killed first.
Yeah. If you spent $200,000 educating, whether it's miseducated or what, $200,000 socializing and educating a human being to actually be in this system, okay? If you get rid of them, that means you got to replace them with something, and you can't replace just pick one up from the store and replace them. It doesn't work that way. You have to grow them, and it takes 18 to 20 years just to regrow that person. So the thing is, they're just talking. They don't know what they're talking about half the time.
Yeah,
But a lot of that stuff too, is where I see where they're making comments based off of a institution that they volunteered to go into, and they think human. There's a reason why the vast majority of people do not go in the military. They don't want to fucking live like that. So you can't take that same principle and apply it to just an everyday average person. Like,
you know what? When I went to ROTC, you know what they told me?
What was that?
There's a reason you have regular soldiers and officers, right? And the training that an officer gets is different from what a soldier gets for a very good reason. An officer knows that there is no such thing as a useless eater. He's not going to think that way, but a soldier will, because they don't understand the whole gamut of the whole pie. Okay, there's a reason that officers are trained differently. That's the first thing. My first month at ROTC, that's the way they told me. There's a reason that you are trained as an officer, because you're going to look at the world differently. And they do. Okay, so I can tell a person's position by the stuff that's coming out of his mouth. You're a foot soldier. Okay.
Yeah.
And you try to make executive decisions as a foot soldier, because you think that little slice of the pie that you saw was the whole totality of the objective they were trying to get. And the higher you go up, the more you understand what the objective is. Okay, you have no clue. You have no clue what the objective of the people at the top are, according to what you're doing. All you know is you carrying out orders. That's it.
And that's if you look at the analogy of the Planet of the Apes, right? I think the second movie. That's what Koba's problem was. Koba couldn't see past himself.
Yeah.
And Caesar was trying to go, look, man, I'm trying to keep all these babies alive.
Yeah.
Let these niggas do their shit and get the fuck out of here. We gonna still keep growing. Let them do their thing. They're not growing anymore.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. You're right, BJ.
Yeah, because you think the so-called uneducated, the 40,000 uneducated meat packers that were getting sick and ready to go on strike, they weren't worth anything until you had to figure out where they fit in the whole chain of events, which is why Donald Trump stepped in. Okay, you don't think that they're important because they're uneducated. Some might be immigrants or whatnot, right? Uneducated, right? But the thing is, they have a function. And if those people are not there, then the whole chain gets messed up.
Yeah, because
people
are influenced by other people, and people are influenced by other people, but definitely influenced when they're not there. Quickly not there anymore. They're like, wait a minute. That is, we see how influential some people, a group of people not being around has an effect, on you. And so all the pork workers all of a sudden not working, that for in my industry, we were like, wait, what the hell? Like, because
Nicole, I shipped out some products last week. That shit just got to who it was supposed to go to. Yeah. I'm like, God, dog, I'm trying to make some money. This shit.
The postal worker that's probably a temp. It probably didn't come to work that day, even though they're only making like $14 an hour. Doesn't seem important, but they are. And as smart as Nicole is, there's like thousands of people in the supply chain that gives her the ability to do what she does.
Right.
Well, that's why you'll always see me be just. That's why I said that's why you'll always see me go against feminism and equality. I'm going to go against that because of women like Nicole Ali. They're exceptional people. We need a Nicole Ali to be exceptional. She don't need to be handing out groceries at no grocery store. That ain't. that's a waste of mind.
It's a waste of her mind. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just lucky that she's humble. That's we're lucky.
Yeah,
because she's smart enough to be a prick, but she's not. She's humble.
I just do what I can. I do what I can when I can. That's, what I can when I can, because I just don't see the usefulness in it. Like, there's no use in being like so haughty or having such an attitude, ego. Like, what? I don't have that type of mentality. Like, my thing is, I'm not gonna be out in front saying the things that were said on Art Stream, Art of It More Stream, and everything. Like, if I was, and you can tell, because you can, like you were saying, BJS, you can tell that he's not like in a leadership position by the way that he was saying things. And I was raised like, you play the background, sit your ass down, play the background. When the time is right, get your knife out.
But and Nicole, there's a video game, and I think Nameless might know what I'm talking about. Everybody might know what I'm talking about. But it's called BioShock.
Oh yeah.
So the premise of BioShock was to take all these smart people and go put them in their own city. But what happened is there are essential jobs that need to be done, like clean the latrines and fix pipes. Well, if you're a high producing individual, you don't want to go fix pipes and clean no toilets. And so that's where their society started to break down, because the resentment started to come in. Whereas, like, back on land, I was a millionaire. I was a person of business, a leader in industry, right? Down here, I'm just some pipe wrenching fool, right? So you see, I don't care what enclave he tries to go make, if he ain't gonna be the one wishing to clean the latrines, because nobody likes to do it, right? At the end of the day, you're gonna have your society start breaking down, because at the end of the day, humans have this stupid thing called egos, and that's probably gonna be one of our biggest things that we have to get over for life, which is ego. So
ego come, and then ego breaking that down. It's just a matter of you have to go through some things. Like, I mean, the best way is to never have it show its ugly head. But if you can't avoid that, then you're gonna have to get knocked down a few times.
But it's also, you can't have human beings without ego. We have to have it, right? That's part of the little bit of sugar and spice and everything nice that gets put in the pot to make a human being. So we just have to learn to deal with it and live with it. So
I wanted to say thank you to Aqua Techie and also Abe O for giving me that super chat, getting them little twos and fews. Thank you so much. It means a lot. I want to shut down everything. I want everybody on the panel. I think BGS had something to do. He ran off. No, I'm just playing. LOL to Alan, and for what he said. He said, thank you from a postal worker for the comments y'all were making earlier. And I want everybody to get an opportunity to give their last words. I might come back on later on this evening, like follow up or something, but y'all give your last statements and we'll be out for the evening.
I'll go first. I ain't got really much to say. Thanks for having me on, Nicole. I'm always going to salute you, and thank you for being here. Same admiration I have for BGS I have for you, because you don't have to be here. You can go off, live your life, and you and your husband go have some babies, and you be doing your own thing. So I know for a fact that you do care about Black men. I do know you care about Black male leadership, and I do know you care about Black families. And I appreciate you for everything you do. And so outside of that, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
All right. I'll go next. Thanks for having me up. You got good information.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, so I was just saying, I didn't expect you to do a stream, so I appreciate you covering this topic. Shout out to Human Resources, who actually know how to parlay and make use of folks, and shout out to you for covering said topic, because I think that it was definitely needed. It's definitely a subject that should be discussed, especially in this sector, as we continue to grow and progress and get out of previous topics. When we start delving into a little bit more constructive and really thought-provoking subject matter. I think this is one of those few conversations I was definitely needed. So I appreciate you taking the time out for the stream and breaking things down. Appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, it's no problem. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, you all make the stream go as it needs to go. I just add my little, like I said, my little twos and fews. I add what I can. But I appreciate it because, I keep the notes and, something somebody sends me or, that sparks the the flame and we go from there. So I thank you very much for that, the email and you're very insightful. A lot of things you say, I think about and I have notes. Just remember that, everybody, I got my notes.
Got the one note. Perfect.
I'm in the clouds with a notepad. Okay.
Much appreciated. Well, until next time, have a good one. Enjoy your evening.
Enjoy your evening too. Thank you. And thank you to everybody in the chat room. Thank you for the super chats. I think I missed one. Thank you for coming. Welcome to my channel. Alan Wiley, how you doing? Abe O, Aquateki, everybody that gave in the super chat, thank you so much. And also on the Cash App, I think I just had MLR. Once again, I want to say thank you. I'm getting a little emotional, so I'm gonna shut this down and come back later. So you all have a good evening. Much love, much respect to you. I only want to put out the truth as much as I can. Like I said earlier, I do what I can when I can. And yeah, that's it. We're out. Peace.